3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Therefore, be it resolved that the Madison County School Board hereby certifies to the best of each member's knowledge, number one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and number two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Could we do the vote by roll call? Ms. Patterson. Oh, may I have a second? Ms. Patterson, would you call the roll, please?
I certify.
I certify.
I certify.
I certify. All right, the next thing on our agenda is we hope you'll join us as we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do a moment of silence. Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll join us for a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. The next thing on our agenda is the personnel matters. We have personnel matters, and if I could have a motion to approve the personnel matters as presented, please.
So moved.
It's been moved. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the personnel matters as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Hearing none, motion carries. I just wanted to let you all know, too, just as far as general information, we have had a good recruiting month, and we've hired a lot of new teachers. We've had some vacancies because people left, but we have a lot of people on the list, and we've hired a bunch of really nice, good teachers, so we're looking forward to working with them. The next thing on the agenda is the claims. If I could have a motion to approve the claims as presented, please.
I'll move to approve the motion to collect the claims.
It's been moved that we approve the claims as presented, and also we would want to approve the school board meetings at the same time. So I think we can do that. If you can wrap it all into one.
Okay, I so move for both those things.
Okay, both those things. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the school board minutes for May the 9th, 2022, as well as the claims for operating expenses, food services, the CIP, supplemental appropriation expenses, and the expenditure report. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. I don't know who is doing, are you? I didn't know if we had students here to do this or.
No, tonight we have Ms. Jillian Smith, our lead high school counselor,
Wonderful.
to give our presentation on the graduating class.
Thank you.
There we go. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Jillian Smith, Counseling Director here at the high school, and I'm here to present a little bit of data to you all regarding the class of 2022. So you'll see on the board our graduating class profile. So moving on to the following slide, once we get that up there. So you see we finished off our year this year with 125 students. That does include one early grad, so originally with the cohort of 2023. That also includes 3 2021 cohort students, so that they did return to finish off what they started. So that is included in the 125. We did have 9 students within that 125 that actually finished in December and obviously returned to us in May to walk across the stage. So unfortunately, out of that 125, or fortunately because it is a small number, whichever way you want to look at it, we did have 3 seniors that did not finish. One is currently still working on some content this summer to hopefully finish off this summer, and then 2 other students that we hope to regain next year. One of those 2 is working on a little bit this summer, and then we'll still have a little bit to do when they come back in the fall, hopefully. Next slide. So you'll see the breakdown of our diplomas earned. 51 standard diplomas, 67 advanced studies, 2 applied studies, and then our 2 foreign exchange students who obviously were awarded their certificates of completion before returning to their home countries. Looking at postgraduate plans, we did have 64% of the graduating class planning to further their education. So that's a breakdown of 2-year trade tech school of 43 students, 33 students pursuing 4-year college or university, and then our 2 with other educational plans. Again, our foreign exchange students returning to complete their studies in their home countries. We do have 34% of our graduating class pursuing enrollment, and then 2% of our graduating class pursuing enlistment. That is made up of our 3 students, 2 for the Marines and 1 for the Air Force. Looking at the breakdown of our seals, 41 for the Governor's Seal, which, just if anyone's not familiar with the different seal options, the Governor's Seal is for a student that earned the Advanced Studies Diploma, the average with at least 9 transferable college credits. The Board of Ed Seal, we had 41 students obtain that honor. That is a standard or advanced diploma with an A average all the way throughout. The CTE Seal is that they are either a CTE completer with a B average within that sequence of classes or passed a CTE credentialing exam. And then the Civic Seal is finishing U.S. History and Gov with a B or higher and having 50 hours of community service to show for themselves. The Seal of Biliteracy is passing their English SOLs and then also demonstrating proficiency in a language other than English from a list of prescribed assessments. We had 1 student finish with that. The STEM Seal, we have 4 students that finish with the STEM, which is either the standard or the advanced, but all classwork for math and science that would be required for the advanced diploma with a B average in those classes, 50 hours of work-based learning opportunity in a STEM area. They're a CTE completer, passed a CTE STEM H credentialing exam, or have received college credits through it within a STEM area. So you can see there's a hefty list of requirements for that STEM seal. Science, also a lengthy list. We had 1 student that received the science seal, that is the standard or advanced, but all 3 different disciplines as far as science, at least 1 rigorous higher level science, B or better in each of those science courses, lab or field science research, presenting that research in a formal juried setting, 50 hours of community service involving the application of science as well. The BRVGS seal goes to our BRVGS graduates. So they've completed all of their advanced studies diploma requirements as well as their GovSchool requirements, which is a minimum of 8 GovSchool approved courses, including the highest options available in all courses taken, at least 4 dual enrollment or AP courses, at least 5 math courses, at least 5 science classes, and of course their senior internship and senior project. Our early college scholars, they finished with B or better average, advanced diploma, and earned at least 15 potential transferable college credits through dual enrollment or AP. And then obviously our Beta Club, French Honor Society, and Spanish Honor Society. Go ahead and advance to the next slide. That completes the data that I have to present to you all, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask?
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say it's quite an accomplished class, so it was nice to see that report done the way that it was done, so thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. I have a comment to make before public comment. I'm pleased to see so many of you here. It shows me that you are passionate about your children and you're passionate about their education and what kinds of teachers they have, what kinds of school board you have, and so we're very happy about that. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say, everybody, because everybody has a voice. But one thing I do want to say before we get started with public comment, there will be only one public comment tonight, but this is an official business meeting with a specific agenda. It's a public meeting, and we're glad you're here, and we welcome your participation during the public comment section. To that end, however, there are rules of conduct that we expect to be followed by everyone in this room, including us. There's a lot of chatter, and obviously there's a lot of information going around about textbooks, I would imagine, but a lot of different things. And so we want to hear what you have to say, but there can't be any name calling. This is a civil meeting. No name calling, no shouting out, no booing when somebody speaks. Everybody has the right to be heard. So I just want to ask your understanding, because we do want to hear what everybody has to say, and everybody has the right to say it. So if there's somebody that would like to come up and make a public comment, if you would please approach the microphone and tell us your name and where you live in Madison, please. Evening.
Name is Gail Temple, and unlike the students,
Mrs. Temple, is your microphone on?
it is.
Is it? Okay.
I'm trying to take your job, I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Good evening. My name is Gail Temple, and I have been teaching in the Madison school system for 25 years, 9 years as a third grade teacher, and 16 years as a high school English teacher, having taught at every grade level. I have served as the English department instructional team leader. I also have 3 children, all of whom graduated from MCHS, who brought home English homework, 2 of the 3 at least. So I know about textbooks. But I'm not standing here to beg or to plead about adopting Houghton Mifflin textbook series. You already know that this series is the recommendation of Madison County High School. What I am standing here asking of you is to trust us as the professionals that we are. Parents have always been welcome to talk to the English teachers or any teacher about the selections that will be read during the semester. And for those who come in for open house night or who read the course syllabus, some have done just that. In all of my years of teaching, never have I forced a student to read literature that went against their values and beliefs. At one time, a student came to me with an issue with the novel that the class was being assigned to read. She was not my student, but she came to me. And together, the student, her teacher, and I found an alternate title for her to read that covered the same literary concept that was the focus of our lesson. I, as a parent, trusted this school with my children, and I'm asking you to trust us with yours. Teachers have to earn a degree and then be recertified every 10 years. It was 5. With the license, the state of Virginia says that we are qualified. We have yearly evaluations. We have informal and formal observations throughout the year. We have walkthroughs from the superintendent, assistant superintendent for instruction, and you, the school board. We have open door policies where parents can meet with teachers outside of the scheduled parent-teacher conferences. We attend professional development. Parents can log into Parent Portal at any time to see their kids' grades. There is no hidden agenda. We are transparent. Trust us. I am asking you to trust our judgment with this adoption recommendation. Let us know that you have faith in us. If you have concerns over a particular piece of literature, please talk to your child's teacher and the administration if necessary. Mr. Wingate has shared a list of selections that he has questioned for various reasons, and that's his right. But when I am standing in front of a diverse body of students, and our classes are diverse because we are in a public school system, the literature is going to be diverse as well. Our students have a right to that. So I will leave you with this. As I stated before, my 3 kids went through the system. My oldest is 34 years old, soon to be 35, and her class of 2005 was the last class to experience a new English textbook.
Thank you, Ms. Temple.
Thank you.
And I forgot to say that. 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Kim Smith. I live in Brightwood, and I'm here to share a concern with you. I went through 13 years of public school, received an excellent education. I left not knowing one thing about the political, the social, or the personal opinions of my instructors. I went through 3 years of college, 4 years and a bit, and again, left without knowing all but one who was a refugee from communist Czechoslovakia. It is so important that our children receive balanced education without bias, with truth as opposed to opinion. Some of the excerpts I read concerned me greatly. Balance has to be brought into the process because without it, you don't have education. I am sincerely hopeful that you will think very carefully, consider the opinions that Mr. Wingate has ably articulated, and do what is best for all the children so that when they leave Madison, you are not preparing children who can march for whatever cause, but children who have the skills and the knowledge to go out and provide solutions to problems that can be identified intellectually. And it is my sincere hope that this school year is focused on doing the very best we can for everyone's child. Mine are grown, but they went through Montessori, public. We tried homeschooling, which was not a really good plan. And then we did private. Their colleges were public. They were well educated and they're successful. And that's what I want for these people's children as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Good evening. My name is Ricky Mitchell, and I've taught English at MCHS for the past 5 years. Prior to that, I've taught for several years in Culpeper. Beyond those years of experience, I have also obtained several degrees. I earned my master's in professional writing this past summer. Summer prior to that, I earned my education specialist in curriculum and instruction. I also happen to have a bachelor's of arts in English and a master's of teaching in English. And the only reason I share that is to share that I definitely am qualified to comment on the textbook adoption. As you guys all know, our textbook adoption, it was every secondary education teacher. We reviewed all of the samples. We took notes. We talked to our instructional team leaders. All of that information was then provided to our small committee, which was our instructional team leaders, admin, reading specialists. We reviewed everything again before we made our recommendations. So personally, as an English teacher, what I did was I also reviewed all of the samples. I first skimmed through each of the textbooks for each grade level to ensure that I saw direct correlation with our standards of learning. I didn't want to waste my time with the textbook that wasn't relevant to my students with their learning. The textbooks, the old textbooks that have been mentioned, they're 30 years out of date. They have not been relevant in regards to SOLs for probably the last 20 years. There's several SOLs that aren't even there anymore between our standards and the last set. In fact, we haven't used those textbooks the entire time that I've been at Madison. I also then went and searched for the built-in tiered support that I knew was necessary for our students. I looked to see if there were accommodations and materials provided for our students that are learning English and for our students with learning disabilities, because I know how important that is for our students. I then also reviewed just to see if there was generalized tiered support and text to support all of our students in general, because even if they're not identified with a need, they all need us. As I reviewed the samples, I searched for tiered text, strong vocabulary instruction, integrated writing instruction, and grammar skills that are content specific. So, and I have like 2 other pages of notes, and I'll skip those. My main thing is that as an educator, I sat with a bunch of other educators and we went through and evaluated all of this. Mr. Wingate, I do value the fact that you took the time and effort to really go through the sample textbooks. That meant a lot to us. Some of the comments that you made in regards to that, one that I just wanted to comment was, so you were saying that we need to, there are a few stories written by modern American authors that focus on heroism, uplifting tales, etc. Those aren't items that are going to be found in a textbook. Those are what the classroom teachers bring into the classroom. And then the last thing I wanted to say is in regards to estimable correlation, there may not have been tons of articles written from American authors, sir, simply because 9th grade is a general education, 10th grade is international literature, 11th grade is American lit, which you would see your authors, then 12th grade is British literature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Lisa Davis, Locustdale. I was going to talk about our governor's report that just came out about schools, but now I've changed my mind after just sitting here for 10 minutes. We've heard many concerns about some board members that project conservative ideals and religious beliefs as they pertain to local education. First, we should be thankful that they and the other school members, board members, have a variety of diverse ideals and beliefs. That is important. The voters have spoken when they elected each member of the board. Anyone that went to any open forums or read each individual's bio knew what positions and background that candidate had. No surprises there. May not agree with it, but we need opinions that do not include just our own. Second, as it pertains to specific textbooks to be voted on for next year, I have not in detail read all the titles that Mr. Wingate was reviewing. However, some excerpts from the literature readings could raise some issues unless it's balanced with how great America is and what positive things it has done with extraordinary people since its founding. There are debate points from both sides as I compared my notes. There needs to be the rest of the story written and taught for each grade book that argues in a more one-sided opinion. It's just as important to read authors writing a variety of stories and tributes. American pride and success and opportunity with love of country, courage, and basically the good we have done along with our dark side. When Speech on the Vietnam War by Martin Luther King in '67 states our soldiers as brutal and a force for evil, then attacks our country as the greatest initiator of violence, I would expect the other side of history on how we got into the war, how our own government limited what the soldiers could do and how they could fight with the rules of engagement and especially the extreme cruelty many experience in prison. Then the reading is more balanced with the counterbalance. We can often, and we do, disagree on various topics, and in the spirit of healthy academic inquiry, we should examine all sides of an issue. Each one of us here has an agenda, whether you want to believe it or not. But one thing that has all of us united is the love and concern for the children. Yes, we all have specific ideas on what is needed or not needed in the school education, sexual orientation, critical race theory, how it's taught, is it taught, certain authors, use, and etc. Where our issue lies is how to find a common ground, and that at times is very hard to do unless you can really be open to the other person's point of view. You can disagree with it and debate it all you want until you try it and understand their reason why. Otherwise, we stagnate. We agree there's a variety of school educational concerns and often do disagree on various topics, but we should examine all sides of any issue. We must embrace our differences, understand that they are a fact of life, build on them for the benefit of all.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Hello, I'm Isha Jones. I am a mother of two kids in Madison County High Schools, and a mother of an educator who will be coming to teach in Madison in August. And I didn't prepare anything, but I wanted to say what I see. Everyone here cares about our kids, and that's important. But I hope that the same energy that everyone has in this audience will come into the next school year once we see our SOL scores, because everyone will be needed. Our SOL scores this year are not good at all. And so we're here fighting against each other, what this person think is best, what that person is think is best, but no one's putting the kids first. Mr. Wingate, I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you, Anna Graham, Lisa Davis, Ms. Temple. We don't agree, but we put the kids first, and we came up with some great goals. Instead of using our platforms to divide us, why can't we use our platforms to bring each other together? Because our kids need it, and there's a lot of work to be done next year, a lot. What's happening here today should be an example of what shouldn't be happening. What happened over the last couple of weeks, the shootings, shouldn't be happening. But if we continue at each other, we're putting ourselves at danger, we're putting our kids at danger. They're looking at us as the examples, and we're not giving them that. We've got to be better than what we're doing today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Clyde Hackney.
Mr. Hackney, could you speak into the microphone, please?
Sure. My wife told me to do that too. I'm Clyde Hackney. I came here in '65. I taught for, I think it was 3 years, business education, assistant principal, 2 years, and then moved on to high school principal in '70 through '85, 15 years. There I went to the school board office where I was assistant superintendent for administration and finance. My wife told me to do that too. I received last week a petition, and I thought this petition might give us all something to think about for a while. It discusses the primary duty of schools is to teach students the basic skills needed to function in society, such as reading, writing, and mathematics. And I know this is old school, but last week I also received a thank you note from my grandson. He didn't graduate from MCHS. And the handwriting was atrocious. He admits that, and he tells me, Granddad, don't worry about that. We have computers. I said, there's one thing about it. When we have a blackout, you'll find you're going to need better handwriting. I implore you to return to a curriculum that achieves those items, their basics, for all children. Beyond that, all curriculum teach that all children are created equal. Equal moral value under God, our Constitution, and the law. Our school district must ban any curriculum that promotes partisan opinions, activist propaganda, obscene material, or pits students against each other on the basis of race. When teachers or administrators promote political agendas in the classroom, they abuse their platform and dishonor every family who trusts them with their children's education. Educators share patriotic lessons, or should, that equip students with knowledge of America's founding principles, a deep reverence for their liberties, and a profound love of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackney.
I'm Rebecca Gore, and I'm from Rochelle, Virginia, and I have two grandsons that will enter the high school in a couple of years. I taught here for quite a number of years. I believe that we must allow our teachers who are professionally trained to choose and to teach as they were trained to present any type of information. Not have our teachers feel as if they are under some form of a microscope that could have them produce a skewed opinion or worse yet, an intellectual lie. Many students my age who were educated in the 50s and 60s entered college, and we were astounded by some of the truths that we were being exposed to. With the First Amendment, freedom of speech, we live in a democracy that has persisted for over 300 years, the strongest and most respected country in the world. Democracy allows for many different ideas to exist together peaceably with a working compromise. It is important for children to be educated in such a way that teaches them to think critically and to evaluate information to determine what is factual and what isn't, and what works for them and others in this diverse society and what does not. There are some ugly parts of our country's past. There are groups of people in the past and unfortunately today who have and do display hate toward others and act accordingly. Our children need to know that this is not appropriate or how it should be in a civilized society that speaks of freedom and unalienable rights. No child needs to assume blame for the past based on race, nor gender, nor ethnicity, and any other personal characteristic that seemingly does not fit the mold for this America, the United States, the melting pot. There is so much to learn. We need to be lifelong learners, for life brings about change and contradictory ideas. Our children need to be able to and willing to accept the challenges of dealing with the change. Children, educators, parents, administrators, school board members need to critically question and think about what is best for the youth of 2041 graduating class, maybe 2061 or 2081. Thinking critically is a key skill for educated people, deciding what is best for their children. I say teach children everything that is appropriate for their age group, but recognizing that information that was inappropriate in 1951 or 1966 when I graduated may be appropriate in 2016 or even 2020 or maybe 2041. Correct it so we may move forward and not backwards. Let the students evaluate, tackle, discuss in their guided peer groups what they may be viable solutions.
Thank you, Ms. Gore.
Thank you. And I appreciate all y'all's opinion.
I'm not a teacher. I'm a college student at Christopher Newport University. I've lived in Madison my whole life. I went to Wetzel. And I'm not speaking from, credentials like some of these teachers who've spoken obviously have. But I guess I want to propose some questions for you all as you consider the choosing textbooks. First, that textbooks.
Ma'am, can you state your name?
I'm Whit Flores. That textbooks are only the beginning of a discussion in a classroom, and so what is said in a textbook, there's still so much room for a teacher to guide a discussion around, and there's context of the whole class to consider which is why they choose the books and what fits most for the curriculum and SOLs and stuff like that. But also I wonder, well, I think this sort of discussion is important and it helps us get to the best books for students that will best aid them in their education. I have to ask, where does this end? What is the ideal outcome with this
you disapprove of these books, and then will the next selections be better for you? And if one person can kind of bring that, this to undo some of the work, this is the very hard work these teachers have been doing all summer to come up with a list of books, sort of, I don't see that being in the best interest of students. And so I would really hope you consider using your power to listen to the experts, which is the teachers of Madison, who are really quite qualified and have been working hard. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jean Busbozo. I live at Locustale, Virginia. I'd like to regress a little bit to last month's meeting.
Can you guys from the back here? Okay.
Okay, I'll
Let's try
try,
to,
but
could
do my
we try it
best.
again, please?
Okay. I want to regress to last month's meeting. There are two sayings I'd like to say. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And it looks like there was a situation where there was a solution in search of a problem. So I'd like to talk of that later, but I will deal with tonight. This has to do with textbooks. I believe if something is printed for the children to read, it should be informative, it should be unbiased, it should be well written, and it should be factual. It doesn't matter who writes it, whether it's a liberal, which some of you seem to have a problem with, or whether it's a conservative. It should have those elements. And one of the things that I was most concerned about that found was objective, having to do reforming the world in which it deals with women's right to vote. And if you notice, I have on my banner today. When I grew up in Madison County, I was not aware, was not told of the problems that women had getting the vote. It was much later that I learned about that. Also, I have been to Lawton. I saw where women were mistreated and even force-fed. So I think you need to know these things in school. I also was taught that there were not many men who were very much wanted women to have the vote. Reading the article that you find objectionable, I learned something. I learned that there were men who were willing to help women and who went through quite a bit, who went through problems that they had to overcome to be able to do that. So I learned by reading this. So again, I want to emphasize the fact that you may not have what you want to say. So you need to find another alternative to that. But if it's factual, if it's unbiased, if it's informative, and if it's factual, why is there objection? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joanna Faulkner, and I spent a great deal of time over the last month, and I came up with this great big speech, and I talked to 24 counties about these books and about the opinions of the books. I had it all written out, but in a very few words, someone summed it up better than I could have ever. And the statement is, if you're afraid that reading a book might change someone's thinking, then you're not afraid of books, you're afraid of thinking. You need to think about that. People need to be well-rounded. They need to know what happened in the past. They need to know what can happen in the future. Because otherwise, you end up with a bunch of naive individuals.
Thank you.
You hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm Jim
Oh,
Ballard.
I think. Can you guys in the back hear?
Is this a little better? Good, thank you. I'm Jim Ballard. I'm a longtime resident of Madison County, who had spent many years away in submarine service. I'm here tonight to speak out as strongly as I can against any censorship proposal that's going out that affects our children. Our schools are here to let our young people experience vastly different works, not to be curtailed by the religious or political bias or views of anyone, regardless of their position. We should be happy to see our youngsters reading very diverse things, controversial things, even things like Das Kapital by Karl Marx. Let them learn firsthand the flaws and the strengths of things like socialism. Let them read and learn for themselves, form their own views. My high school encouraged it. We should be too. Secondly, this kind of censorship that's being proposed here is based on one person or small groups' religious, political biases. These are truly most un-American. There's no other way to phrase it. And the worst examples of community leadership that I can imagine. Mr. Jefferson was so right to exhort us to keep religion out of our government, and certainly we should keep it out of our schools. Leave it to our teachers. Finally, please remember that your religion and mine may not be the same religion for many other people in our nation. It was for religious freedom that many of our early settlers risked all. I hope we're not coming to be the religious bigots that drove our ancestors out of Europe, or the censoring book burners that some folks seem to worship and be heading that direction. Let's leave it to our school system to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, school board, staff. My name is Jeff Light. I'm the pastor of Novum Baptist Church. And I want to thank you for your service and for this difficult task that you have. And I want to thank you so much for taking your task seriously and the responsibility that you have as the school board here in Madison County. And I appreciate all the comments that have been made. I'm here to represent the folks over at Novum Baptist Church and the prayers that we've been having for the schools and for the community. And we just appreciate how you're taking your actions seriously to discern what is the best curriculum to bring our children up for the coming years. The teaching of the basics of science, math, English, and history seem to be common sense and paramount. And we would urge you to make that the primary thrust of the curriculum that you choose. May it be that every student, every child, is able to succeed in this world with knowledge that will help them in the workplace, in the family, and in society. May it be that they are filled with that which would help them to succeed in whatever vocation they chose, whether it's a technical vocation or a vocation of higher education and a white-collar job of sorts. Please don't allow for the sexualization of our children. Please don't allow for those things that come in that are just part of the winds that blow from political ends that come and go, but be solid and allow our students and our children to continue to be built on a rock. Thank you so much for your hard work and all that you're doing, and know that you have our support. We thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Susanna Spencer. I live here.
You guys in the back here? Okay. Could you guys throw me up a hand if you can't hear, please? Thank you. Okay. Could you bring it down a little bit?
My name is Susanna Spencer. I live near Duet.
It's still, okay.
I know I'm soft-spoken, so my name is Susanna Spencer. I live near Duet, and you still can't hear me?
You guys, yes? Yes? Okay. Yes, just speak up, please.
Okay. I have a different approach I'm wanting to bring tonight because of what I've read about children's. A lot of the assumptions here are based on the really nice idea that most parents give a good home to their children and are loving and are good guidance to them. But I have spent quite a few years with a therapy dog going to programs in schools for children who are having difficulty reading. And so I didn't really know these kids. I just go in once a week and, somebody brings the kids into the room and they choose which dog they want to read to. I have a miniature dachshund, so he tends to be pretty popular. And, I didn't know exactly what their intellectual skill is or their background, but sometimes when a child would be reading, and these are like 6-year-old kids, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I think you might get the gist. This one little girl was reading to me, and then she stopped. And she said, "My daddy's in jail." I said, "Oh." And then she started to go in some details you really don't want to know. But she was 6 years old. And her teacher was standing close by, the reading teacher. And when I got up to leave, when we all left the classroom, she said to me, the school is a lot of these children's safe place. They have, family lives that are so difficult that school is where they can come to be protected. And I thought, all these children have a hard time reading. And over the years, as I was doing this and getting to know several kids, a lot of kids, I realized one of these reasons why these kids aren't learning very well is how can they even think and learn when they've got these home life situations that just defy description from me, from my point of view. And I just realized from my perspective, I kind of assumed homes to be blah, 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 blah. These kids had a totally different reference point because they were in very dysfunctional homes. Maybe their parents weren't even there all the time. Maybe they were latchkey kids. So that was what I learned from working closely with little kids over the years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Burke. I'm super nervous. I'm from Wolftown. I moved to Madison about 4 years ago. I'm a decorated combat veteran. I spent 3 years overseas in Iraq. One of the things that we did was, thank you. Don't clap, it's not over. Right. So there's one of the things that keeps coming to my mind during this is during my time overseas, I was injured very badly. One of my jobs was to walk school children to school in schools that we built. We built over 132 schools in Iraq, just outside of Baghdad, Al-Assad, all over the country. I've taken lives to protect children's right to an education, Muslim children's right to an education. It didn't matter, and I am a Christian woman, but as an American soldier, they have the right to an education. They have a right to be safe in their schools. And people stand here and talk about the First Amendment and your freedom of speech, but if you're taking Christianity out of our schools, how is that free? What kind of freedom of speech is that? That's not what I fought for. That's not what my comrades died for. We died so everybody could have an equal opportunity. So to stand here and say that one thing or another doesn't belong in our education system is irrational. It makes us no better than everybody else. So again, I'm super nervous, but that's what I have to say. I hope that you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Taylor. I live in Wolftown. I'd like to speak to the review
Ms.
of the
Taylor,
textbook.
could you speak up a little bit? I'm seeing a few
Sure,
hands.
sure.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak to the review of the textbook. Years ago, I wrote a book for middle school students entitled Censorship. And I could not have imagined when I wrote this all those years ago that we would still be confronting censorship as an issue in our schools today. But this is where we seem to be headed. I believe we are on dangerous ground here. I take great exception to the assertion that several of these texts do not promote love of country and citizenship. One objection was to a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, the Vietnam speech, which was very controversial at the time. He was a man who so loved his country that he risked his life for years to encourage our nation to live up to its promise and founding ideals. His home was bombed in 1956, and his life was in danger every day thereafter until he was killed at the age of 39. He gave his life on that final day advocating for the basic rights and dignity of sanitation workers. He was a Nobel Peace Prize recipient who advocated for all Americans, including soldiers, and especially the poor. He wanted America to do better. He wanted America to be better. And many Americans hated him for that. But that is true love of country and love of Americans. There was also an objection to James Baldwin's extraordinary letter to his nephew in The Fire Next Time, entitled My Dungeon Shook. Baldwin is writing in 1963 of his experience with demoralizing racial oppression. His letter is one of the most moving and powerful American essays ever written, both devastating and uplifting. In acknowledging that his nephew will need to continue to strive for dignity and self-worth in a racist society, he writes 2 quick lines. "For this is your home, my friend. Do not be driven from it. Great men have done great things here and will again, and we can make America what America must become. It will be hard, James, but you come from sturdy peasant stock, men who picked cotton and dammed rivers and built railroads, and in the teeth of the most terrifying odds, achieved an unassailable and monumental dignity. It's beautiful." Baldwin's writing is transformational, and I can't imagine denying our high school students the opportunity to read this important work. And I do believe it demonstrates love of country and a yearning to claim full and equal citizenship. I would ask, what would the countering perspective possibly be? Please allow our professional educators who selected this textbook to do their job.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
I absolutely was not going to speak tonight. But a comment was made a little while ago that kind of bothered me when a gentleman said, I didn't do that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry. My name is Florence Harris. I live in Brightwood.
Thank you.
I just took objection, I guess, or just disagreement. It bothered me, and that's why I'm up here. The gentleman said we need to take religion out of our schools. I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but if he knows anything at all about history, our country and our educational system was founded on religion. I don't think when you think we're putting religion in the school, what we're really doing is trying to bring morality back into our country. And it's important to start with our children. And of course, our children are in school, so that's a good place to begin. I mean, I'm in my 80s now, so some people will say I don't even have any skin in the game anymore. I have grandchildren that I care a whole lot about, and I've lived long enough to see that this country is not headed in the right direction. I do not have objections to the curriculum because I don't know enough about it, so I'm not here to object or agree with it. I want to alert the school board and everybody that's here at this meeting that we need to watch where we're going. And if we have to look at our schools, if we have to look at what's being taught, let's look at it. Let's be very, very cautious. It may look harmless, but I have seen over the years of what looked harmless and what we went along with has gotten to the point where God is not only taken out of schools, it's being taken out of our country. And we better beware.
Oh, I forgot to say thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Carolyn Smith. I live in Ayler Hollow. I think we're really on a slippery slope when we try to restrict and limit what our children learn, when we try to deny them a pluralism, a diversity of viewpoints. We've been fighting this battle for a long time. 40 years ago in 1982, the Supreme Court reviewed a case that was brought by a school district in upstate New York. It was Board of Education versus PICO, in which they addressed a constitutional challenge to a local school board's decision to remove some books from the school libraries. The issue before the court was, did the school board's decision to remove these books, to ban certain books from the school libraries based on their content, violate the First Amendment's freedom of speech protections? The Supreme Court said yes. The court said that although local school boards have broad discretion in the management of school affairs, that discretion must be exercised in a manner that comports with the transcendent imperatives of the First Amendment. The justices said that school boards could not remove books to suppress ideas. In their written opinions, the justices invoked the principle that, quote, the Constitution protects the right to receive information and ideas. And they concluded that school officials may not remove books from a school library, quote, for the purpose of restricting access to the political ideas or social perspectives discussed in them when that action is motivated simply by the official's disapproval of the ideas involved, unquote. Doing so, they said, was a violation of the First Amendment. I realize here we're not talking about removing books from libraries, but we are talking about removing textbooks, and I think the same principle of the transcendent imperatives of the First Amendment apply here too. I just think it's a bad idea to introduce censorship into our schools when we're trying to prepare citizens for an extremely diverse and pluralistic world. We associate censorship of ideas and books with Nazi Germany, with the Soviet Union, and I would certainly hope that that's not what we ever come to associate with the United States of America.
Thank you.
I live here in Madison County.
Ms. Faulkner, could you please, yes,
All right,
thank
is that
you.
a little better?
Everybody,
Con-
can you hear?
My
Okay,
name's
yes,
Conway
ma'am.
Faulkner, I live here in the county. Instead of banning or not using these textbooks because of these few readings that you disagree with, how about you make suggestions on what to add to the class so that your point of view can also be heard by the children? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Justin. I live in Brightwood. I think we might benefit from refocusing. I've heard a lot of unrelated issues mentioned here. It's not about y'all's perspective. It's on what our children should be taught. It certainly should not be about what the professional's perspective is about what our children should be taught. It is a matter of what we, the parents, want our children to be taught. And I've never mistrusted teachers until I got here tonight and I heard many people speaking about how they really need to be trusted to override my parental decisions for my child, and how us as the collective parents should not be left room to make important decisions for our child regarding what subject matter they're exposed to. But it sounds as if there is a directive effort to ensure that we don't even have a say in the fight. And I'm sorry, but I can't agree to meeting in the middle with my child and saying, well, I'll throw in some of the stuff that I believe in and you can teach my child some of the stuff that you believe in. No. Nobody is allowed to teach my child stuff that I haven't approved of. They don't have a dog in the fight. They don't have a perspective. No education that they receive gives them that right or that qualification. No morality gives them that ability to exercise. I will not tell them what they should and shouldn't teach their kids in their home. I never would. If they want to teach their children, if the opposition wants to teach their children that soldiers are bad, I won't respect them for it, but I'll never tell them about it, and I'll never tell their children any otherwise. If they want to teach that Christianity is bad, I won't hold that against them and tell them that that's not their right. We're just merely asking that when something is cast out into the community, like public education, that it is left in a framework and a structure that does not circumvent the rights of parents. We are the most important person in our child's life, not their teacher. And forgive me, not their school board. And certainly not the professors that taught those teachers and shaped them. And certainly not if the goal is to have an impact on society. There are many parents that I have disagreed with, and I have not approved of how they raise their children. They've never known that I felt that way because it's not my prerogative. I don't get to tell them that. I care very much about how my child is raised. I care a lot about what she is exposed to. It is appalling to me, the concept that my child could be exposed to in public school, the concept that American soldiers are evil or that the family unit is bad.
Thank you, Justin.
Good evening. My name is Dale Freeman. I am the pastor of Fellowship Baptist Church here in Madison. I've been for 16 years, and I represent the good people of Fellowship Baptist Church. I love this county, and I am very concerned about what we're discussing tonight. Very concerned about it. I have just a few comments. First of all, I don't think when someone is looking out after the welfare of the teaching of our children that that's censorship. I don't look at it that way. Now, others may, and they're certainly welcome to do that. I don't view this as a censorship. I view it as an oversight. As the gentleman spoke before, as a parent, I think that parents certainly have the right to know what their children are being taught. I think we need to be teaching our children things that foster honesty, honor, respect, family, country, fear of God. These are the things that need to be being taught. Now, within the framework, of course, of a curriculum that's geared to them. I'm for that. And so I hope that you would each one consider that the morality of our children is just as important as the education of our children. They go together, and I think they can be taught together in the classroom. And I think the curriculum will go a long way in determining that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Moeller. I live in Radiant. And to me, from what I've heard from everybody, it doesn't seem like people are attacking Christianity. It doesn't seem like people are attacking family. It seems like what people are saying is that religion and political beliefs need to be left out of the decision-making as to what goes on with the curriculum. I'm all for parents being extremely involved in the teaching of their children and in trying to figure out how the curriculum should be formed. But I also believe that the teachers who are trained to teach our children and run their own curriculum should be trusted in that they're making the best decisions for that curriculum they're trying to teach, for age appropriate. And I'm not saying that we should follow everybody blindly, but I think that we need to give our teachers a lot more credit than they seem to be giving, and a lot more support than they seem to be getting recently. And it just seems like that people seem to think that just because the teachers have a lot of control over the curriculum, that all of a sudden the parents have none, which is not true. And I know exactly what's going on with my kids. Every week, I know what's going on with my kids. I know what's being taught, and if I have an issue or if I have any questions, I get in touch with that teacher and I get a response. And so I think that the teachers are doing a good job in trying to adjust their curriculum to the feedback they're receiving from their parents already. But, as far as, again, a lot of the, religion, I think that that is for the home, not for the public school system. I think politics is for the home, not for the public school system. Yes, we need to discuss those things as far as a factual content goes, but as far as personal beliefs and your personal views, that needs to stay out of the classroom, and I think it is. I have not heard from my children any teacher telling them their personal beliefs on religion or politics or sexual orientation or any of that stuff. So, I think that as far as the textbook goes, from the few things that I've looked at in review, I have no issues with the textbook and the textbooks that are up for review at this point. And I know that certain board members do based on, again, political and religious reasons, and I think those need to be set aside. You need to look at the facts. And a lot of textbooks have been already vetted by the Virginia Department of Education. And they fact check everything, and they go, they do a lot of background checks before they suggest these books for approval. So I think that's where it needs to lie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is William Weimer.
Could you bring the mic down just a little bit or project a little bit more?
Hello, my name is William Weimer King, and I'm going into the 7th grade.
Could you push it out a little bit more?
Hello, my name is William Weimer
There
King,
you go.
and I'm going into the 7th grade. I really don't like these ideas with the textbooks. I really don't think it's right. I think it should be, we should keep religion in the school, and we just need to, I think there needs to be a little bit more respect, and even though religion is, everyone disagrees on some things, we should all just come together and try not to make it a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Graham Davidson, I'm Brightwood. It's a shame to see our society so divided. It's a shame to see our school system constantly being questioned over the past 2 years, as long as I've lived here in Madison anyway. It's also difficult to watch our children who are under immense pressure and confusion. And that's happening. Our environment is kind of in chaos right now, if you ask me, in my opinion. And I really believe that we are at a time where your leadership is needed. I come here first as a Christian. I'm the father of 4 children in the school system. I come as a person who loves our country. I've been a soldier for 19 years. And I also come as a credentialed and experienced educator. And I want to bring up 2 things that I'm concerned about. The first thing is the morality of our children. Secondly, I'm concerned about teaching as a profession here in Madison County. I think that our schools should teach unity. I think they should teach obedience and restraint, respect and integrity and selfless service. I think they should teach hard work, the prudent exercise of intelligence. I think that we should teach our children to live honorably. I don't think anyone in this auditorium would disagree with any of those virtues. In fact, I think if we focused on those virtues, a lot of the things that we're fighting about would just dissolve. So how do we protect our teachers, the teaching profession here in Madison? Specifically, how do we build on and sustain the trust that we're talking about between our teachers and students, teachers in the community, teachers and students' parents? This is important. Otherwise, you're not a profession if you don't have trust. So the reality is that people are aware of current efforts that are happening in our country, maybe not necessarily here in Madison, but there are things going on to educate, advocate, and assist our children to believe, to become, and to do things that are not aligned with traditional American values and principles. We are in an era where we are fearful that our children are going to believe patriotism is a bad word. You know, where our children are going to believe Christian values are no longer relevant in this society. It's wrong. You can take action tonight. And you know, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. I understand that. I know that the current environment is not like it was 10 years ago. There are things happening at the national level, particularly in the private sector, that are triggering this era of accountability that we're in. And that's why we're all here tonight. So you can begin by taking a couple steps back, looking and protecting the profession by asking our board to go back to the drawing board. And I think that this is going to be important for us to do that and necessary to protect the profession.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson.
Hello. My name is Portia Bailey, and I live in Haywood. I am a mom of 4 Madison students. I am also an educator myself, 25 years. It has been brought up by many speakers up here how well-educated educators must be. And when you have educators that are standing up or submitting their reports, they vetted these different textbook series, the VDOE has, and then those educated educators here in the county have also said, hey, this is what we see, these are the ones we like, these are the ones we prefer. As a school board, your job is to support the students and the teachers. Support them. They have to use this textbook, well, it looks like at least for 30 years. That's when the last one was purchased. And things are gonna change, and you hope it doesn't have to last 30 years. Trust me, that's horrible. That's a lot of extra work by teachers to go and find and implement and add to the curriculum. Speaking of curriculum, the curriculum is set forth by VDOE, and it is extremely specific for the grade level and the grade level content that is to be taught to your students. So if you ever question what your child is learning, or you want to know what they will be learning, go to VDOE and look it up. It's there for you. One more thing about after you finally choose the textbook, it has to be ordered, it has to be delivered, it has to be stamped, it has to be cataloged, it has to be dispersed. And then the teachers have to go and learn that curriculum that is to be implemented. So it's not as simple as, hey, here's your new book, have at it. Those teachers have to spend lots of hours and learn all the different parts and components to that because, as someone else pointed out, you've got ESL, you've got accommodations for students, you've got the advanced learners, you've got the learners that need extra support. There are so many different parts and pieces to a new textbook. It's not simply, here's a textbook, use it. So as your teachers are suggesting, hey, we really like this, get with them, support them in what they want because they have to use it every day. And they still have yet, after it is delivered, they have to learn how to use it best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Mike Sharman from the Novum area of Madison County. In the past, in order to not offend the very few folks who don't recognize Christmas as either a religious or a secular holiday, the Madison County Public School calendar has had a winter break rather than a Christmas break. Even though canceling out Christmas, censoring Christmas, was itself offensive to many more people. But the wide range of policies that you all are considering, not just the textbook one we've been hearing, but the wide range, would allow your policy shaping concept of no offense to work both ways. And that would move toward mutual toleration, which would be very much appreciated. After all, why should Madison County Public Schools allow a banner to be placed in a library that presents the imagery and phrasings of NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association? But if, for example, a teacher wanted to present the Shema, a daily prayer that's said by Jews around the world, and was also, Jesus had also instructed his Christian followers to say it, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength." Well, that, of course, would be censored. Here's a question and answer that was excuse me, published a while back in a magazine advice column. The question was, my problem is different from the ones most people have. I'm a boy, but I feel about boys the way I ought to feel about girls. What can I do? So the answer was, your problem is not at all an uncommon one. However, it does require careful attention. The type of feeling that you have toward boys is probably not an innate tendency, but something that's been culturally acquired. You're already on the right road toward a solution, and you honestly recognize the problem and have a desire to solve it. So that common sense answer was written by Dr. Martin Luther King in the advice column that he put in Ebony magazine. There may be many here this evening who disagree with Dr. King's advice. And they really wouldn't want us, as a public school education, to point out that as a pastor, the Reverend Dr. King might have had as part of his decision-making process on that many statements in the Bible that condemn and oppose homosexuality. For example, in the Old Testament, at Leviticus 18:22, in the New Testament, at Romans 1:26-27. But on the other side, there are many people, like myself, who agree with Dr. King's assertion that homosexuality is definitely a problem and should be corrected. But the policies he proposed properly balance and make neutral those and ask that each side be presented.
Thank you, Mr. Sharman. Anybody else?
Hello, my name's Dan Ward, and I'm from Riva, Virginia. Is that loud enough?
I see a few hands going up in the back.
Well, that's unusual. I usually speak very loud. My name is Dan Ward. I'm from Riva, Virginia. I see something happening here tonight that is a age-old thing. It's been since the creation of the world, and that is the world view. We have people here that have a liberal worldview, and we have people here that has a Christian worldview. The Christian worldview is what our country was founded upon. I have a constitution right here in my pocket. And I'd like to read a few sentences out of the Declaration of Independence.
Can you hear? Yes.
All right, the Declaration of Independence.
Could you project a little bit more, please?
Man, this thing is technical, isn't it? The Declaration of Independence.
there is a phrase, well, let me just read it off. I better not. There is a phrase that says laws of nature and nature's God. The laws of nature is the will of God revealed. I'm sorry. The laws of nature is God's will revealed to us. The nature of God is God's revelation of His Word. We are a Christian nation that was founded upon biblical principles. We must teach our children what is right, what is moral, what is decent. God created man and woman. He created a male and He created a female. That is not going to change no matter how hard you want to change it, no matter how much you want to be different. That is God's nature. He put it in us. Two homosexuals cannot procreate. They cannot do biblical command of be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. They cannot replenish the earth. Homosexuals cannot do that. I'm done.
Thank you.
Hi. I actually was going to, can you hear me? Hi, my name's Christina. I live in Wolftown.
Can you hear?
It's so funny that he talked about the Declaration of Independence because this is something that I'm super passionate about. I've called the school board several times just to talk about it. So this laws of nature, I actually called the Supreme Court and asked them what the legal definition of the laws of nature were. And they hung up on me. So I'm a little bit stubborn, and I called the White House, and they were like, I don't know, baby, Google it. So that took me to John Locke. It took me to like really learning about our founding fathers and what they believed. And then that took, because I started thinking, well, if there's laws of nature, then there has to be lawyers of nature. And who would these lawyers of nature be? And so they would be anyone who lives in harmony with the land. And at the time, I was living in an old cabin at the base of Old Rag and Nethers. And I started thinking about the mountain people. I started thinking about the First Nations. And I thought, well, so the lawyers of nature would be anyone who lives in harmony with the land. And then I started thinking, well, what happened? What has the federal government done to these lawyers of nature? And at minimum, they've done a cultural genocide. So I thought it was interesting that he talked about the first sentence of the Declaration of Independence, because I've been on the phone with nations all over the country, because the center of Native law is natural law. And Article 6 says that any elected official is supposed to honor the treaty, but we have no legal definition of the laws of nature in our Supreme Court, which blows my mind. my whole point was there is all these sides, right? And there has been I wasn't prepared. I actually wasn't going to talk at all. This is my first meeting I've ever been to. But there's been diversity forever, right? So when we get into this, like, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm just gonna, but I feel like, what if we were learning how to sew again? What if we were learning how to cook again? What if we were learning trades in school? And I was a public school student. I was a horrible student. I had horrible grades. I dropped out of high school. I went to massage school, and my first teacher was metaphysical, and she taught me that the divine spark existed in every cell of everything alive. And it changed my worldview, because our education system, because we've removed this concept of the laws of nature as a holistic society, we're teaching in fragments, and all that does is create confusion in the individual, and then also it's being mirrored as a collective. That's all I sort of wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's David Oliver.
Everybody hear me good? I didn't think nobody had a problem hearing me. Anyway, I'm just a concerned citizen, honestly. I come here tonight. I had no intentions whatsoever. I actually told my wife before I left the house that I would not be speaking. But since she's been married to me for 15 years, she probably knew that I would. But honestly, this is what all I want to say is I don't know a whole lot about it. I read through it briefly. I got brought into it at a later date than I got into it at a later date than I should have. But I read through some of the stuff, and honestly, but the thing that I've heard here tonight, it was said earlier, and I think it's been repeated a couple times, but, you know, people's talked about let the teachers do their job. They're the educators. They've been educated. Well, who educated them? See, at some point, we have to decide, you know, I could get up and say I'm educated. I am educated. I'm educated in some things that they're not educated in. And I understand that I'm not teaching at Madison County High School, but the bottom line is, I heard it said earlier, that the school board was voted on, and their position was very clear when they were voted on. So that means the people that voted them in because of what they stood for. And so to me, if the school board will just stand for what they said they stand for, I think this is very simple. I think we could debate all night about what this one believes or what that one believes, but at the end of the day, the people that voted you into place, you know what they believe. That's why they voted for you. So if you just vote for what the people that voted for you believe in, I think this is open, closed. This is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Philip Rudd, and I like David there is just a concerned citizen. But I heard a lot of things said tonight. My wife homeschools our children, but she homeschools our children partly because of the problems in the public school system, because of the curriculums and the ideals that they teach. And I've heard a lot of things about professionalism, professional occupations, licensures and different entities, and I'm a licensed professional in the jobs that I do. But when I go on a job and I give my professional opinion, that's where it stops. I get paid for my services, but at the end of the day, the customer is the one that decides what they want, and I think that that's overlooked by the part of the educators here. They are not the recipient of this. The parents and the students are, and so we all pay taxes. We all elect officials to represent ourselves, and the reality of it is they really have very little to do with their personal viewpoints on it. They are parents, probably some of them, but there's never been a birth certificate that has been issued with a Madison County School District name on it. It is given to a parent. It is given the authority to that parent to raise that child. And when teachers forget their place in that role, when educators and school boards forget that you do have somebody that you answer to the county. You answer to the people that have voted you in there, like David said. But not only that, I think that a lot of times we forget why we're here. Education is just like any sport that is played. The first thing that you do in sports is you teach fundamentals. They are building blocks, so when you get to the point where you can do it on your own, you have everything that you need to succeed. Then it's on you to put the effort in. It's on you to put the practice in. And that is where when these children become adults and they have the ability to think for themselves critically, they have the tools that they need to make right decisions because they've been educated in a way. Education is to give them the ability to learn. It's not to indoctrinate them. It is to give them it's to foster the idea of thinking. It is not to frame their thinking for them. And so what is happening with these curriculums is they are trying to frame their thinking for them, so when they leave the high school, they can count on whether it's a political ideology, a religious ideology. And I've heard a lot said, I've got 30 seconds left, but I've heard a lot said about, well, it's censorship. A lot of educators have stood up here and said they don't stand for the censorship of these books, and we're relating them to Nazis censored things. But at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, the education system censored the Bible out of school. And so if they're not for censorship, then I would make this recommendation to the school board. I would recommend you consider reintroducing the Bible into your curriculum.
Thank you.
was. I have no plans to say anything, but I want to thank the men that we voted for. I'm a resident of Madison County. I'm a Merriman, been here 25 years or more. This is actually the first time I've ever been sit in the auditorium. And why is that? And I have 5 children, 16 grandkids. And my hope and prayer is that none of them ever are taught in the school, unless somebody like Mr. Wingate, gentleman here, whoever else is standing, will take a stand, do us right. And even though you're being accused of censoring, they're censoring you for censoring. So it's really hypocritical when it comes right down to it. But I pay taxes in Madison for 25 years. First time I've been in this auditorium. Because I don't want my children being taught they come from a monkey, or communism is okay, or all the other foolishness I've heard tonight. And I made this statement over the years. I got a dog. He just died. His name was Boomer. I said, I wouldn't even put my dog in the public school because I'm afraid he'd come home and start meowing because he was taught he's a cat. So that's why my children have never come here. But because we voted for some of these folks here, and they're taking a stand, and I know it hurts because everybody, it really ain't everybody. It's just the ones that oppose you or want to give their 2 cents. But the taxpayer and the voters in Madison are for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
My name is Jeff Tucker, live in downtown Shelby, Virginia, and just came to say I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate all that you teach us. I'm an educator myself. But there's been quite a bit of talk about censorship. And I thought while I had 2 minutes left, that I would say this, that for God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. I say it now because when school is in session, that is censored. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you guys for your comments. We appreciate hearing them. Obviously, we don't comment right now, but that was a very interesting exchange of ideas. And I think all of us appreciate the fact that you showed up tonight, you said what you had to say, and you heard each other as well. So we thank you for that. We will be discussing textbooks later on. The next thing on our agenda is an instructional report, and that will be given by Ms. Jones.
Hey, for those of you, it's very loud. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kathy Jones. I'm the assistant superintendent, and tonight I will be talking to the board about our federal grants. This is the board meeting each year where we bring those to you and ask you to approve them. And so I'm going to give you a little information about each of these. I'm going to let Mr. Pate get caught up with my PowerPoint so you all can see the information. So the first grant that I'll talk about is our Title I grant. And there's Title I Part A and Title I Part C. Mrs. Wilson, our middle school principal, manages this particular grant for our division. Title I Part A provides assistance through the state education agency to public schools and school divisions that have high numbers or percentages of children from low-income families to help ensure that all children can meet the challenging state academic content and achievement standards. Waverly Yowell and Madison Primary are both Title I schools. And so this grant, what we use it for is it supports salaries for one of our preschool teachers. It supports the salaries for our instructional coaches, a reading specialist, and a math interventionist. We also use the grant for our Reach It Through Reading Summer Reading Outreach program. It pays for instructional licenses for a reading program that our students use. It also helps cover professional development for our staff. It has paid for author visits and One School, One Book initiatives. Title I Part C is a regional grant that we are part of, and it funds needs for migrant children as needed. All right, so I'm going to move on to Title II. Title II provides federal funding to states and districts to strengthen instructional leadership and teacher quality in our schools. And so what this supports is our first-year teachers have mentors, and it supports that program. It supports curriculum work. It pays part of the salary for our middle school instructional coach. It pays sign-on bonuses for hard-to-fill positions. We use it to help pay for endorsement and licensure assessment testing costs for our staff. It helps pay for tuition reimbursement and coursework expenses for our teachers. And we use it also to help pay for professional development experiences for teachers. The next federal grant I'll talk about is Title III. Title III addresses English language proficiency and the academic achievement of English learners. And we do have English learners in our school division. This includes provision of language instruction, educational activities that increase the knowledge and skills of teachers who serve our EL students. And what we use this for, and we don't receive a whole lot of money in this area because we don't have a whole lot of students, but we do have them. And we purchased a platform called Elevation, and it's software that helps us to be compliant with all of the Title III and civil rights regulations. It also holds the data for those regulations and helps us to be compliant. And then we also have Title IV. Title IV is a grant that is providing funds to improve students' academic achievement by increasing the capacity of local school divisions to provide all students with a well-rounded education, improve conditions for learning, and improve the use of technology in order to improve academic achievement and digital literacy for students. We particularly use our grant for well-rounded education and improving school conditions for learning because we use it to pay the reading specialist salary at Waverly Yao Elementary School for part of that salary. And so these are the title federal grants that we have. They are written, they're in board docs, and you can review those, and they have to be uploaded to the state by July 1st. And so we're asking you later tonight in your board approvals to approve these grants so that we can be compliant and get those uploaded. The other thing I'll just tell you about these grants is they are not set in stone. They can be amended, revised. If things change, we can also change what we have put in these grants over the course of the grant. So it's good to know that as well. So thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions, board?
I have one question. I'm all for getting taxpayers' money back to Madison. It's awesome. It's good work. Is there any danger sort of setting programs up and the grants drying up, 6 months later? Is that something that, how do you kind of take that into account? Are they year-long or multi-year-long things?
Go ahead.
These grants are issued each year to schools, and they are federal grants. So they do fluctuate occasionally, and when they do fluctuate, we have to go back and make amendments to the grant. So we never overspend what the grant is. We always just spend what we're allotted. It's pretty consistent. Yeah. Right.
Any other questions, board? All right. Well, the next thing on our agenda falls under business information, and there is a proposed spring 2023 band trip that we'll be receiving information about tonight.
Oh, there it is.
You guys
What
hear
about now?
back there?
Are we good?
I see a couple of hands. If you'd project a little bit more,
Yeah.
please.
Absolutely, I have no problem projecting. So, hello, school board. A lot of you I have never met before, but I am Sarah Humphreys. I'm the band director here at Madison County High School and the choir director as well. And now that we have gotten back into the swing of a normal school year again, as far as like structure goes for not being online and all of that, I am working on planning a trip to New York City in April of 2023 for the band and choir program at the high school. So you might be asking why New York City, of all places, and New York City is full of art and musical opportunities, as well as historical education. The ability to see a real professional Broadway performance, interact with the New York Philharmonic, and engage in other educational, both musical and historical, is for some of these students a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. New York City is rich with musical culture, from the New York Philharmonic to Broadway to the multiple performance venues that exist in the city. It's also just a really cool way to explore landmarks that we've all heard of, like the Statue of Liberty, the Rockefeller Center, the Museum of Modern Art, Central Park, and more. So this is a survey that I sent out to families in late April, early May, just to get an idea of who is interested in going and what that level of interest is. When I sent this, I did a little bit of research, but my research was not complete yet because it was so early in the process. So my goal was to keep it under $700 per person, of course, depending on how many go. And based on that information, and I sent them a sample itinerary that it'll come later. So 37.5% of them plan on attending and are not concerned about the cost whatsoever. 50% of them want to attend if the trip is approved, but are minorly concerned about cost. 10% will only attend the trip if they can fundraise the entire amount. And then I think it's one person that's not interested at all. My guess is only 40 people filled this out, and it was only given to rising 9th through 12th graders for the coming school year. So I'm sure there are plenty that did not see it or did not fill it out or will be interested once the school year starts or haven't been in a music class yet, so they haven't seen it. So accounting for that, I am estimating that we will have about 50 to 60 people attend, including chaperones, once we get approval for this. And now, post-survey, and after receiving almost all of my quotes for the things that I'm planning to do, the new goal is to keep it below $800 per person. I've not sent that out to families yet because I got all of that information yesterday and today as I was following up with everyone that I was talking to. So here's the estimated cost. Right now, based on all of the quotes that I have gathered, for 40 people, it's looking about $949, 50, 746, 60, 769, and 70, 848. The sweet spot is that 50 to 60 people where it's not crazy expensive and is also kind of what I'm planning for. The total cost for the trip highly depends on the amount of people. And if possible, I would love to send home a commitment form no later than the first week of August, which is our second week of marching band camp, in order to give students and families enough time to plan how they're going to do this. And please note that I only estimated these costs per person. They can drastically change when show tickets are released, because none of those are out yet. I have called and they just don't have that information yet. And when we confirm how many people are attending. And it is a lot of money, but the cost includes a lot. So all of the breakfast will be included for every day, and it covers the hotel for everyone. It covers transportation by charter bus. It covers all of the performance tickets. It covers the Statue of Liberty ticket and the Museum of Modern Art ticket. 2 group dinners at Ellen Stardust Diner, which is one of the coolest places I've ever been. That's where up-and-coming Broadway singers wait tables and they perform in front of you, which is the coolest thing ever. And then the other one is at the Hard Rock Cafe, because you can't go to New York City and not go to the Hard Rock Cafe. A boxed lunch for the drive to New York, dinner at a Golden Corral on the way back. And there are school employees who are very interested in chaperoning, and band staff. And in my conversations with Dr. Graham, we have concluded that those should be included in the trip costs because they are school employees. And as we go through this presentation, all of these included costs are in bold. I have them bolded on every slide. Any extra money, the plan is to give cash to chaperones to keep track of, and for students to have their meals on their own, because they will do a meal per day with their group and with their chaperone, not as a large group. As far as a payment plan goes, 100%, the first payment of $200 is going to be due September 5th. to secure your spot on the trip and to commit, like, yes, I will pay this amount. All remaining payments amount is to be decided until I get all the necessary information. Is due November 7th and January 9th so that we kind of avoid that Christmas window, but it also gives breathing room if people need an adjusted payment plan. If a student cannot afford this trip, we have 5 million fundraisers every year. Maybe not completely 5 million, but there are a lot. That all students are always advertised. If you work, you earn money into your booster account. It's advertised this way every year, and this coming year, I'm working on having even more because it is a trip year. A lot of them already have funds in this booster account that they can use for any musical purpose. It can be used for marching band dues. It can be used for private lessons. It can be used for little tiny things that we do as a band, and they need to buy food at concessions. So this account already exists for all students. They can also reach out to me if there are any financial concerns or if an adjusted plan of some kind is needed. That's why that timeline for the payment plan is the way that it is, so that there's room for that. Some of the fundraisers that we do, tractor pull parking, county fair parking, we do a spaghetti dinner where the jazz band plays, we do a pancake breakfast. We're gonna have multiple sales-based fundraisers this year, Little Caesars Pizza, pie from Chuck Bat. We're doing a new one with Premier Sports Peanuts, and then one of our booster members found a really cool fundraiser where you can order fun little shapes of pasta around Christmas time. Like anything you could possibly think of, you can get it in a pasta shape. And we're going to be seeking other opportunities year-long. These are the available dates of what I am thinking, and this is what I advertised to the hotels that I got quotes from, either April 13th through 16th or April 20th through 23rd. They are both Thursday morning to Sunday evening timelines. We will likely choose which date on hotel availability, because that's what makes the most sense. You can always find different shows to go see, but hotel availability is kind of iffy. All right, so now we go into the tentative itinerary that was also sent home to families. So Thursday, day that we leave, everyone arrives here at the high school. We pack the buses, we take attendance. 7:30, we leave. We're gonna stop to eat our lunch on the way. And the plan is to get a boxed lunch from Subway, and they can eat it we can stop and eat to give ourselves a break from the bus, or we can eat it on the bus. At 2 o'clock, we would arrive at the hotel, which will be in New Jersey. All 3 hotels are in New Jersey because it is significantly cheaper than New York City. We check in, we unpack, we get settled, and then at 2:45, we depart for Times Square. We should get there at about 3. Times Square is free time in groups with your assigned chaperone, and you'll have dinner on your own in their groups, which is where that extra cash would come in. And this free time isn't like, students just go. We're going places as our small groups with our adult. And then at 8 o'clock, we would meet to see performance number 1. The ticket is included in the trip cost. I don't know what performance number 1 is yet because none of them are released for April 2023. 11 o'clock, we get back to the hotel, 12 p.m., lights out, doors taped, no one leaves the room. And the estimate for Subway is about $8 a person. Probably buffer that up to 10 just to ensure everyone's covered. All right. Next slide, please. And then day 2, which is Friday, wake up, breakfast at the hotel, get ready for the day. We are leaving at 9:30 for Times Square and Herald Square. From 10 basically until 5, you can enjoy Times Square and Herald Square in your groups. If your group wants to go back to the hotel and hang out, that there's an adult with them, so that is fine. They have that flexibility. And then lunch on their own with their group. 5 p.m., we meet at Ellen Stardust Diner for dinner, which is going to be included in the trip cost. Again, coolest place I've ever been in my entire life. It's awesome. 7:30, we would walk to whatever our next performance is. 8 o'clock is performance number 2. And these performance times can fluctuate just depending on what is available, and the daily schedule will adjust accordingly. Same night deal, return at 11, and then 12 o'clock, lights out, doors taped. Estimating Ellen's is about $40 a person, and this could change by the time we book it, depending on how many people we have. It's always crowded, but they do group reservations. Next slide, yes. Saturday, wake up, breakfast, get ready, depart for the Museum of Modern Art. At 10 a.m. would be our Museum of Modern Art tour. They give guided educational tours to students for trips. They do this all the time. I have been to the MoMA, and it is a really incredible experience. At noon, we head to Central Park. We have free time and lunch on our own in groups to kind of explore the shops and what the sites are to see on their own. 5 o'clock, we meet for dinner at the Hard Rock Cafe, also included in the cost. 7 o'clock, we walk to the next performance. 8 o'clock, performance number 3. 11 o'clock, return to the hotel. 12 p.m., lights out, doors taped. It's a very similar evening schedule every night. The current rate that I got quoted from the Museum of Modern Art is $9 a person, 18 and under, and $20 for everyone over 18. This is an extremely awesome rate, especially for what that contains. The Hard Rock Cafe is estimated at $35 a person, and that could change by the time we book. I was not able to get a direct quote from them at this time because it's so far in advance. All right, next slide, please. Last day, Sunday, wake up, get ready for the day, pack the buses. We leave by 9 o'clock for the Statue of Liberty, which is also included in the trip cost. At 10, we arrive at the Statue of Liberty for our tour and have free time around the Statue of Liberty area and get lunch there. And then as soon as we're done with that, 2 o'clock, we leave for MCHS. And then around dinner time, we would stop at the Golden Corral in Hanover, Maryland. And then we arrive at 9 o'clock at MCHS on a Sunday, so there is no reason for students to not be at school Monday morning. We're not getting back crazy late. The Statue of Liberty tickets, I was quoted $12 per student and $20 per adult, but one chaperone discounted for every 10 students to $12, which is also an awesome deal. Golden Corral is estimated at $16 a person. That price typically doesn't change, but honestly, right now, who knows? Next slide, please. All right, and our performance options. My plan is to present available options to students and allow them to vote on what shows they would like to attend. They can choose 3 performances. I will only present options that will fit into our schedule outline. The schedule can be minorly adjusted to fit what performances are chosen. I've selected a multitude to choose from. The schedule and ticket availability isn't available yet, so the ticket prices shown on the next slide are from the current June 2022 ticket prices for those shows, and they tend to be rerunning quite often. So I imagine that if not all of them, most of them will still be playing in April. I chose the best seating option for each based on price and a quality experience. Next slide, please. Yep. All right, so here are our performance options. For Broadway and off-Broadway, we have the Blue Man Group, which is like a musical visual event. Has everybody heard of them? They've been around forever. Yeah. And then the second one is Stomp, which is newer, but basically it's a percussion musical visual show, and they use like different unique instruments and make music out of that. We all know Wicked. We all know Lion King. Into the Woods is a really beautiful musical that intertwines a lot of like fairy tale stories. Dear Evan Hansen is a newer one. It is about a young man in high school who is struggling to fit in and really navigates that through his experience. Moulin Rouge, which is a jukebox musical, and The Phantom of the Opera, which most of us know as well, which has one of the absolute best music books in the entire Broadway industry. All these prices are based on an estimated group of 50 people. So when I calculated the estimated overall cost for everybody, I just kind of went in the middle-ish for the prices because we just don't know what they will cost then. So I didn't want to undershoot. I would rather overshoot right now and then be like, yay, it's cheaper. This really cool opportunity with the New York Philharmonic where they do young people's concerts for schools, where you go with your students and they like teach you musical concepts and rehearsal techniques and other things, and they have the New York Phil play in front of you, and it's just your group of students. They don't have any information about anything other than their current program, and it goes till January 2023. They don't have any news about any programs after that. I think they just do it by like concert season. So, but the current program is $10 per person. And then Radio City Music Hall and associated venues, because they have a bunch of little like satellite venues. It's still a very good option, but there's nothing released yet for April 2023. I'm just too ahead of the game. Next slide, please. Oh, and I would like to add that all of the Broadway shows listed are advertised as appropriate for age 12 and up. I have seen every single one with the exception of Moulin Rouge. So I picked through them very carefully. For our hotel options, this is our first option, my personal first choice, purely because we have options with the dates. Both weekends are available, and they are available as of today. I got an email back from Fairfield today. This is Fairfield Inn and Suites in North Bergen, New Jersey. They are offering us king rooms and 2 queen-size bedrooms. So the king sleeps 2, and the queen size sleeps 4. It includes breakfast and bus parking. The bus parking is a huge bonus that I didn't know I wanted until someone told me, no, we don't have bus parking. And I was like, oh, no. So this price is based on the need for 15 to 20 rooms. Queen rooms will be for students and some chaperones depending on need, and king rooms are available to chaperones depending on need. Like if we have a pair of parents and they want to share a king room, that's fine with me. This is my first choice because of the options of the date, and it is a bit cheaper, but the tax percentage is not transparent like one of the following options. It is the closest hotel of the 3 that I got quotes from, with only about a 30-minute drive to Times Square. Next slide, please. Next, we have the Madison Hotel in Morristown, New Jersey. Only April 20th through the 23rd is available as of April 27th. They offer us more options. 1 king room, 1 king bed plus a sofa bed, 2 full size, which sleeps 4, and then a deluxe double, which sleeps 5. This also includes breakfast and parking, but as you can see, it's significantly more expensive. The price, again, is based on 15 to 20 rooms, and the king rooms are available to chaperones based upon need, and then the doubles and deluxe doubles would be for students. So this is my personal second choice for booking, because they have done New York City trips like this for schools for a lot of years now. One of my personal friends, who's also a band director, has taken his students to New York City and stayed at this hotel. And they had a really good experience. They have more rooming options, bus parking, and breakfast, but they are the most expensive of the 3. So that is my reason for not being super in love with that option. And it's also 40 minutes to an hour away from the city. Next slide, please. And then our third option is a Courtyard Marriott in Newark, New Jersey. The only weekend available is April 13th through 16th. And they are offering straight up 25 rooms at $169 a night. It includes breakfast, but it does not include bus parking, and that is my reason for it being the last choice personally. Next slide, please. You have transportation options. I know this is a lot of information, but it's all the information I have right now. So if you want me to stop, I understand. So Quicks Bus Company, they can give us one 55-passenger bus at about $8,000 plus the cost of a hotel for the driver, and that is included in my guess for the rooms. We have James River, which is significantly more expensive, plus a $400 deposit, and I would assume that that cost is included for the hotel for the driver, but they were not transparent about that. Albemarle Coach Lines, they offer much smaller buses for not a significantly cheaper amount of money. All of these rates assume that we are, assume that we are paying for the chauffeur's hotel accommodations. We can add that responsibility to the bus company for an extra cost as far as Albemarle Coach Lines go, and rates do not include tolls or parking fees. So we'll have a more accurate number for buses once we know how many people are attending. Next slide, please. The benefits of this trip. There are 3 opportunities to see professional performances, in like big league professional performances. It's really cool to go to Richmond and go to the Altria Theater. They're wonderful and they're talented. Same with going up to DC, but there's nothing like a Broadway show or a New York Philharmonic performance. It's one of the top orchestras in the entire world. The opportunity to explore parts of the city with their group and their chaperone. 2 included museums between the Museum of Modern Art and the Statue of Liberty. And it's a rare opportunity for these students to leave Virginia and immerse themselves in a new city with a lot of things to offer. I have quite a few students right now who are interested in pursuing music in some fashion in their life. And to be able to be immersed in a city where that is like a major, major cultural part of that city, then that's a big deal for them. So they can really see what that profession looks like. Next slide, please. Do you have any questions for me?
Before we entertain questions from the board, I apologize to all of you. I could have done a much better job at introducing that particular topic. One of the duties of the school board is to approve any field trips that take place out of state. And so that's what this explanation was tonight from Ms. Humphreys. It was an idea that she has that she wanted to present to the board for our approval. We will not be taking a vote on it tonight. This is the first time we've seen this information as well. So anyway, board, you've just seen all this information. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but about the year 1992 or 1993, the Culpeper County High School band that I was in took a trip to Florida for Magic Music Days. We went to Disney World. It was really fun. It was a good trip. I got sunburnt really, really bad. But I do think trips like this are good. I really do, especially the music part of it. I have no interest in going to New York, but I think that would be fun. If they're willing to do the work and get the money, and their parents say it's okay, I mean, when time comes, I'm 100% okay with it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just going to say, I agree. I was 13-ish. Wasn't a school trip, but I went to New York City with horses. Can't play the radio. So that was the first time this country girl went to a big city and rode horses or walked horses in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And that would have never happened had it not been for the wonderful world of miniature horses that used to be at Food Lion parking lot. So I encourage you to pursue and encourage the kids to raise their money. We certainly did, and we had a great time. It was a bunch of us. Ask Valerie. She's not Daniel anymore, but she works here at the school. She went with me to New York City. So
That's really cool. I marched in the Macy's Day Parade in college, and that's one of the times I went. The other time I was in New York City, I was presenting at a music education
Nice.
conference.
So, yeah, an
it's
experience of a
cool.
lifetime.
It's
Yep.
cool.
I support it as long as the parents do, and you guys get the funding.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I appreciate your presentation as well, and good luck with your fundraising, and I guess we'll take a vote on this next month. But I did want to tell you too, I guess everybody's got a little story. I went 51 years ago for a senior trip to New York City, and we were all country people too, and we had bathtubs in our houses. We didn't have showers, so nobody knew to put the shower curtain on the outside, and it flooded the bathroom full of water. And so I think you can learn a lot of things. I think my roommate and I learned that you have to put the shower curtain in the tub when you turn it on. So they'll learn a lot of things that probably are not just from New York City. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to add, I forgot to include this, for the Fairfield, since that was my first choice, I asked them to tentatively block that room block, and they got back to me this morning and say that they can have it blocked until July 18th, just tentatively. There was no money put down, anything like that. But I just wanted to include that. I just forgot to include it because that happened today.
As we reread, if we have questions, can we go ahead and email those questions to you before we take
Absolutely.
our vote? That
Yes.
way we can share information with each other?
Absolutely, yes.
It would,
I didn't include it, I'm so sorry.
it's, well, it's your, just like our, okay.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
would like to ask one more question. So July 18th, if we can reserve them and save that price at that point, but we don't have the funds for it, is the way the school can provide that funding and then be reimbursed when the children raise that money?
So typically, when you book hotels, they have to have a credit card on file, but there
Okay.
are no charges on that credit card, and you pay when you leave. So I took 2 students to Virginia Tech Honor Band this past January, and we had to stay in a hotel because it was a weekend event. And what we did, and it was a much smaller situation, obviously. What we did with Ms. Pecano here, our bookkeeper, she wrote a purchase order that I took with me, and she talked to them or something. She kind of handled that end of it, but as far as I know, when I book hotels, they don't charge me until later. Oh, you can see. Oops. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on our agenda is the 2022 to 2027 Long Range Plan draft. So, do you want me to read the introduction part of it, or you?
You don't have to,
Okay.
unless you want to. No, so this is the first introduction of the draft long-range plan. This came about, well, first of all, it came about because it ends this year, the current instructional long-range plan. So now we are going through the process of developing the 2022-2027 long-range plan. The first step, well, first of all, this has been presented at numerous board meetings as we were leading up to this. There was a parent community survey after the school board developed their priorities for the next few years. And so that survey was taken by 179 respondents, and the information was divided up among the committees. We had various administrators in the division chair the committees, and they gathered community members, parents, teachers, just other people in the school division to serve on the committees. Some of the committees were based on standing committees that we already had. So we have a CTE advisory committee. So that committee looked out for the priority that pertained to CTE. We have a standing teacher advisory committee. So that committee, talked about the different things that we could do to recruit staff. So tonight, instead of reading through everything in the long-range plan, because it's rather lengthy, just wanted to kind of go over the process. So you have it tonight. We'll come back in July. That gives the public time to view it, and people may comment on it because, again, this is a draft. There may be some wording, some things that needs to change. And July can be another discussion period to give you time to absorb anything from the public comment. And then we can hopefully vote on the revised long-range plan at the August board meeting. So I think that gives plenty of time. But you can definitely see there were a lot of people that participated on the committees. And again, there were 179 people that participated in the survey. And there was a small handful of people that took me up on the offer to come to the superintendent listening sessions, but not many. But those that came, we had a great conversation. That's that for tonight.
Board, any questions on the long-range plan? And again, we don't take a vote on that. So the next thing that we have is BFC policy adoption. So I guess I can read this information for you guys, and I think I'll just read it really quickly. It's the responsibility of the school board to adopt policies for governing schools according to board policy BFC. Policy adoption. Policy is a basic statement of the intent of the school board, which creates rights and responsibilities for the conduct of the school division's business. And I won't go into a whole lot of them, but we are tonight going to discuss, board members, the proposed changes to the board policies. Policy IF, curriculum development and adoption, and policy IIAA, textbook selection, adoption, and purchase. Policy INB, teaching about controversial issues. That policy will be on hold until further guidance from the VDOE. New information is coming out from Richmond all the time for us. And rather than write a policy, we want to see what's going to come from Richmond before and so we can look at that first. And then the next one is policy KB, Public and Parent Information Program. And a little bit of information about the stakeholder survey. Ms. Graham, did you want to present that?
Just
Or just-
provided,
you want
I
me
just
to just
provided
read
some
it?
data. Either way, if you would like to read that or if you want me to.
Doesn't matter to me.
We had 299 respondents on the survey, which was great for a community survey. People were able to select various groups that they belong to. So we had 162 people that said they were parents respond, 42 teachers, 14 other employees in the school division, 102 community members from Madison County, And just in case we had people that were following Madison County, I gave them an option to consider themselves an honorary community member, but not Madison, so that was 20 people. And then other, not sure what that meant, but we had 10 other. And so, again, it was a good response, and the board has been provided all the information from that survey to review.
Any comments from the board?
I just had one. I just wanted to explain a little, real quickly about a couple of things. For the first one, these are the ones that I had initially drafted. And the first one, the curriculum development adoption thing, I sat down with Mrs. Graham and and took some input from various board members and people. I think it's a lot better than it was. The people made it better. I think what I'd like to do, I'll propose is that we like to vote on that next time. I think one of the things that is evident in this textbook thing is that there needs to be a clear process in place. So the board is not kind of in this little bit of a quandary now that we don't have a textbook for next year, an English textbook, but so we're kind of trying to be pushed to vote on it, but there's some concern about it. So I just want to clearly lay out what the process is for that textbook adoption policy. It's been legally gone through the legal counsel review. I think we've taken one of the concerns that Mrs. Allen had was that we don't seem like we're stacking the deck, and we took that piece out of it where the board doesn't have a right to go in and add people, things like that. So I think it's better than it was. The highlighted pieces are the current revision that you can see, and I think I would like to try to vote on that next time. And then the second thing Mrs. Allen said, just the reason why the teaching controversial thing I think is good to be on hold for a while is that the state Senate, the state legislature and the governor signed a requirement that there be a model policy on some of these things. That model policy is supposed to be in place by the end of July, and the school board has to have a new policy reflecting that model policy by January 2023. And so I think once we have that model policy, it'll help us to inform our policy. And so that's why that's kind of on delay. And I think we're going to vote on the public and parent thing tonight.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Wingate. The next items on the agenda are for business approval, and we will be voting on the items that are for business approval. And the first one is textbook adoption. All right. Here we go. Originally, and last month, we voted on the K through 5 series, and that went through. I think that there has been some discussion because we held off on doing anything with 6 through 12. But the main concern, it seems to be, is with the textbooks from 9 to 12. So I guess what we'll do, with your permission, is split that into 2 categories. Is that what you guys are thinking? And do the 6 through 8 and the 9 through 12? Is there any opposition to that?
I don't have any opposition. I think we ought to I'd like to discuss, if we're going to do that, I'd like to discuss each one before we vote.
The 6 through 8? Okay. Let's discuss it. I could have do we need a motion yet? Or usually what we do is we split it up if we're going to do that, and then we have a motion and a second. Then we discuss it, and then we vote on it. That's the process. So instead of doing that, you want to do that? Is that what you want to do?
I mean, that's Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, it is.
We have a motion, a second, and then we have a discussion.
That's right.
And it either happens or it doesn't happen.
That's right.
And then we vote.
Okay, so I make a
instead of
motion.
discussing first,
All right.
it would probably be a good idea to do it that way.
So I make a motion that we
So-
discuss the 6 through 8 textbook.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we take a vote on 6 through 8, but before we do, any discussion?
Yes. Mrs. Temple, she's already left.
Yeah.
No, she's not. She's back there.
Mrs. Temple, I wanted to mention you because you were the first one to speak. And I remember you were Katarina's teacher as Mrs. Roebuck. Oh, that was your sister. Pardon me.
Two of them.
You mentioned that we should trust you as teachers, and I think we do. You mentioned that you don't have a hidden agenda, and I don't think any of us up here believe that any of you teachers that we know personally have a hidden agenda. I cannot say the same thing for the curriculum providing companies. I believe they do have a hidden agenda. So the curriculum is, we're talking about splitting up 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12. And I had started going through the 6 through 8 because I wanted to start at 6th grade and just work my way all the way through. And I want to commend all of the teachers for what you have to go through with the curriculum and teaching these children. I also don't think it needs to be that difficult. For instance, there was an example given in grade 9 for students to underline examples of word gaps. And the example was given out of an opinionated write-up. And it goes as stated here. America is an improbable idea, a mongrel nation built of ever-changing disparate parts, held together by a notion, the notion that all men are created equal, though everyone knows that most men consider themselves better than someone. In my mind, that is subliminal indoctrination, already telling children what to believe. I don't think for a second that y'all would teach that in that way. But there are many children in schools that are impressionable and they believe what they read. And that concerns me. Another in grade 9, it will be the last one I'll look at here, was another opinionated piece that was written. And it goes as this. In our digital age, the selfie is the best way to express oneself, empower oneself, and even surround oneself with friends. Everyone everywhere owns and uses a smartphone. And with at least 1 million different social media platforms available, you'd have to live in a cave not to take part in and appreciate this form of communication. Sure, there are critics who say that selfies are taken only by narcissists craving attention. Those critics really do live in caves, and they certainly have no friends. I promise you that my 3 sons will not have a smartphone before they're 18 years old. And I wish that my daughter, who's 21, didn't get one when she was 15. This is telling children that selfies are the way to go. And I have seen selfie pictures that are unacceptable on children's phones. It goes on to say, selfies empower us because they fulfill our need for validation from friends, family, and the rest of the world. If you don't believe it, try it. Science has shown, once again, that taking selfies makes you more confident, especially kids. We all know it. Some people are not allowed to say positive things about themselves because other people will say that they are full of themselves. But a selfie photo, so it's acceptable for those people to show what they're proud of. This is subliminal indoctrination. This is telling kids what to think and tell them how to think. I can't agree with it. I can't vote for this and accept it as being okay. I don't believe it's the school's responsibility to provide every opportunity, every moment of anything that they'll come into contact with. I don't think that's the school's responsibility to provide that while these children are in school. Schools provide them for reading, writing, and arithmetic, prepare them for the real world. Whatever they learn outside of school, that's up to the child and the parents. I'm not telling you what you can or can't teach your child at your house. We're not censoring books. if you want your child to read a pornographic magazine at your home, that's the parent's right. I'm 100% against it. But I'm not there to tell your children what to do in your house. School's a different place. School's for reading and writing, arithmetic, science, history, whatever else I want to add on there. So back to my first point, Mrs. Temple, I do 100% believe that teachers in Madison County schools do not have a hidden agenda. I am more concerned with the hidden agendas that are with the publishing companies that put this information out. And I've got so many notes here. I don't want to take too much time to go through here, but there was a lady that mentioned that the curriculum is adopted by VDOE. Yes, it was. It was accepted, it was approved by VDOE under Northam's administration. And Northam was the one that told parents that you had no say in your child's education in schools. And I don't think that's true. I think we would have a much better outcome at schools if the parents and the teachers were all on the same page and worked together. I know that's not the case all the time. And I know y'all try extra hard to work with the parents, and some parents they're just not easy to work with. I might be one of them. But needless to say, there's too much questionable stuff in here that doesn't actually teach children anything. It tells them something new to think, and it guides them in a direction away from, as Mr. Graham Davison mentioned, away from morality. Thank you.
Other comments?
I just wanted to, my wife told me yesterday or today that she was at the pool and a friend said to her, your husband really kicked a hornet's nest with this stuff. And that was certainly never my intent, but there's certainly been a lot of churn, and I'm not on social media, but people tell me there's a lot of churn on social media. So I just want to take the time to say clearly what I object to in these texts and what I don't object to in these texts. So I have a couple pages, if I can.
Are these about 6 to 8?
It's kind of both, because they kind of go together. So I'll do a discussion for both, and we can kind of look at that if that's all right. When we asked for the delay last time, some couldn't understand why we needed time after the superintendent's recommendation. One online paper declared the school board's approval of textbooks was a pro forma or rubber stamp process. That could not be more wrong in my estimation. We as a board have a serious responsibility to ensure that what our children serve to educate, not indoctrinate, that textbooks respect families and citizens who pay for these books, and that they help teachers do their difficult job of teaching fairly and well. Somebody else said, well, textbooks are the textbooks, and this one was highly recommended by national level educational people. To be honest, that worries me, because it's not our teachers and leaders and administrators here in Madison that I'm worried about. They are our neighbors, they are our friends, they are our fellow parishioners, they are good people I know. Ms. Temple, I fully trust you 100%. And I echo what Mr. Sheed said. It's not the trust is not about the teachers here, it's the trust is the national textbook companies and the national educational establishment. I just want to remind us of what the national, not talking about teachers here, but the national educational establishment's track record has been recently. Think about this a little bit. Remember, it's a national establishment that closed schools probably unnecessarily for 2 years after the pandemic. It was a national educational establishment that required 5-year-olds to be masked for almost 2 years. Despite most other countries not doing that, most people with common sense knew that wasn't the right thing to do, but the national educational establishment wanted to do that. It's the national educational establishment that is sometimes recommending sexually explicit stuff. It's got a radical woke intent rather than focusing on the basics of education. It's a national educational establishment that still believes that they know better than what parents for their children. And that's just not the case. Parents know their children best and know how to educate their children best. I believe that 100%. So I was grateful for the delay. I think it was a good delay to look at what was going on. I appreciate, so I looked at every single selection, 6 to 12. My wife was mad at me for taking all this time. So I commend the teachers and the administrators who did all that stuff. It's a painful process for sure, 100%. And so I didn't want to take the time just to report on what I found in this. And so first, I think the textbooks are well put together. They're attractive, they're user-friendly, they're well organized, I think. They contain many great authors. They have Dickens and Poe and Dickinson and Whitman and Shakespeare. The teach resources appear strong, and I like the flexibility they offer. I also appreciate the focus on vocabulary and grammar that are offered in these books. I can understand why the teachers and administrators like these. There's a lot going for these books. However, I think there's real content issues in the textbooks, and that's why I object to some of them. To be honest, my objections are not particularly for the 6th through 8th. I really didn't find much objectionable. I don't trust the company, but there's not a lot in the 6th through 8th that I object to, and I would defer to the teachers in that because I don't find things objectionable in there. I think the company should be watched, but I think we can do that, and so I don't really object to the 6th through 8th, to be honest. The 9 through 12 is a different story. I do object to them. Some people say, well, there's only a few, and that's true. Most of them I don't object to. I don't object to the 90% of them. There are about 10% that I do. 10% of over 240 selections is a lot of things I don't want my child to read, or be biased to have a biased reading. And so that's still a lot of selections, I think. My glasses on, can't see very well, sorry. The content concerns me for 2 reasons. They contradict 2 principles that I believe Madison County voters care deeply about, and I think we heard tonight. I ran on those 2 things because of that. I was very clear about that. The first is the need for absolute respect by the school for families, parental rights, and the importance of respecting religious faith. Multiple selections in the high school text fail to meet this goal, I think. I won't talk about all of them. The school board's seen the list that I object to. Superintendent Graham has seen it. I'm sure the teachers have seen that. Lots of people have seen it, so I don't want to go into a lot of it, but I do want to talk to you about a couple real quick. For instance, short story, The Story of an Hour, kind of well-known story. Doesn't mean it's great for children, I don't think. It tells the story of a young wife who's told her husband is dead in an accident. Instead of mourning for him, she exults in her freedom from him. She whispers, quote, "Free, free, free," because he's dead. When she finds out he's actually alive, instead of rejoicing that her husband is alive, she dies, seemingly out of shock that she won't now be free from her husband. Is that a good lesson on marriage to teach our children? Another example, one more from this section. Margaret Atwood, who's a self-described kind of eco-feminist, which her words, and author of the pro-abortion rights Handmaid's Tale, who equates in her short story, Bat's life, the job of a housewife to latrine cleaners and ditch diggers in terms of job desirability. In the same story, she talks about bats praying to some Jesus-type bat figure in a prayer that I take to be mocking the Christian's Lord's Prayer. Is that what we want our children to think of mothers who are housewives as being socially undesirable? Certainly my wife who's a housewife, I don't want people thinking of her, my children thinking of her that way. Or to hear the most fundamental Christian prayer to be mocked in this way. Of course we don't. So why would we subject our children to these stories? The second principle I ran on was the need to promote love of country in our children. Last year, a Gallup poll found that 20% of young people aged 18 to 29 are extremely proud to be an American. Only 1 out of 5 young Americans are very proud of our country. That should set off alarm bells in our head. These texts, I believe, are part of the problem. Many of the modern selections in it, the 10% I'm talking about, promote, I think, a globalist perspective that fails to see the United States as an exceptional country, and they focus primarily on the evils of America. A couple quotes. Actually, Charlie quoted one, I won't re-quote it, about the mongrel nation piece and about how evil, there are many evils in America, which again is true. Of course there are evils in America. The question is, where's the counterbalance that says how great America is? And that's lacking in these texts, in my opinion. The second quote, kind of a long quote from Martin Luther King's speech, an anti-war speech on the Vietnam War, 1967. I won't read the whole quote. You can read it. It's a long quote about what the American soldiers did in terms of, children are here raping and killing and things like that in Vietnam. And he, a quote, one short quote, he claims the American government is the greatest, quote, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. This is 1967, the time when the Soviet Union is killing millions of people around the world, but America is the greatest purveyor of violence. Is that what we want our children to think about our country? I don't think Madison taxpayers and citizens want that one-sided bias without at least some nuance about the devastating evils of communism that our nation was trying to stop, which are not there. Many say that diverse opinions are good for children to read and it can promote critical thinking and obvious good. I fully accept that. I embrace it. I am not looking for a conservative or religious curriculum, as some have alleged. Mr. Ballard, I think, several people talked about the need for diversity. I 100% agree. It's good for children to read diverse texts. What is lacking, I think, in these texts is, in the modern writers, is diversity of thought. There's a tendency to be progressive, liberal again and again and again among these modern writers, and that's what I object to. I think it's great. Let's have writers. Let's have conservative writers in there for that kind of diversity. That's what I think we ought to have. So I do not object at all to the diversity. I'm not looking for a religious curriculum, as some say. I don't expect to be a fan of 100% of selections in any textbook, but I am looking for that kind of diversity. I was struck, as I read through all of these things, that nearly every modern writer is known for liberal viewpoints, and their writings reflect that. The texts contain writings by Bill Clinton, liberal icon Robert F. Kennedy, the very liberal Supreme Court Judge Justice Brennan, the New York Times columnist Gail Collins, Anna Quinlan, Kofi Annan of the United Nations, lots of liberal social activists, and then self-described eco-feminist writers like Margaret Atwood. Where are the corresponding selections by less liberal writers? Nowhere to be found. It's getting long, but I want to say this last one more page. So think about this. Think about the goodness what we could have. Clinton's included speech, a useful speech, is included after the Oklahoma City bombing, would be so much more interesting if paired with George Bush's speech after 9/11. But the Bush speech is missing. The liberal court decision to allow the burning of our flag included in these texts, which is good, would be so much more interesting if paired with, say, a conservative Justice Scalia's monumental opinion recognizing the individual right to bear arms. The conservative Scalia is, of course, missing. The included story that denigrates marriage that I quoted would be made much better if it was also included was O. Henry's Gift of the Magi, where a young married couple learn about the noble sacrificial love found in marriage. That, too, is missing. The insult piled on American soldiers in Reverend King's speech in these texts is a legitimate voice. We should read it. But it'd be much more interesting if paired with, say, Dwight Eisenhower's essay on American soldiers' sacrifice for a noble cause on the eve of D-Day. Guess what? Eisenhower's missing from these texts. How about alongside Atwood's insulting story that mocks religious faith, how about adding something by C.S. Lewis on the virtues of faith, hope, and charity for students? Again, missing. There's an essay called Is Survival Selfish? That questions how heroic self-sacrificial acts really are. Not sure that's the greatest thing to teach children, that we want to be courageous, but okay. But how about alongside that, we include an excerpt from Unbroken, that great story where the heroic Louis Zamperini sacrifices greatly for his country and his faith. There's a movie out about it. Guess what? That's missing too. One more, how about? How about alongside the short story, The Ambush, which is in these texts, that kind of denigrates the purpose of American military members. The text included a magnificent, well-written short story on the first Black Medal of Honor winner, Sergeant William Carney, who carried the American flag after being badly wounded in a charge against a Southern fort, refusing to let the flag hit the ground because Sergeant Carney knew that fighting for the flag was a noble endeavor. Nope. We have the degrading of the American soldier here, but no heroic Sergeant Carney. I think that's wrong. How can anyone justify this one-sided approach and always on the same partisan side? I can go on and on, but I'll spare you. I will remind the board that our current policy calls for teaching to be done in an unbiased manner. In my opinion, these textbooks fail in this regard. Because of that, these textbooks will make fair, unbiased teaching more difficult for our teachers. One last comment, I'll stop. In January, Governor Youngkin issued an order restricting the use of critical race theory in our public schools. I think we may be skating on thin ice with this order by adopting these textbooks. One of the lead advisors, in fact, the lead advisor, according to the textbook and to literature, is an academic named Dr. Tyrone Howard. He's deeply involved with promoting critical race theory. In fact, he wrote the foreword to the 2019 book titled, again, critical race theory, a lot of people say, overblown, whatever. This is not my word. This is the title of the book that Dr. Howard, who is the lead advisor for this curriculum, titled Critical Race Theory in Teacher Education, Informing Classroom Culture and Practice, whose goal is, quote, to promote the widespread application of critical race theory to better prepare K-12 teachers to bring an asset-based approach to teaching. Not my words, the words of the book. It would be very surprising to me such passionate advocates of using critical race theory in our schools did not try to incorporate this in the resources provided to teachers and students through the digital components of this purchase. Is this really the company we want in charge of what Madison's children read? I think the worldview of this company and its advisors is clearly a better fit for California, New York, Loudoun County, Fairfax County than it is for Madison County. We can do far better for our students and families and community. Madison taxpayers work hard to buy these texts, and most Madison parents do not want their children to read works that are not respectful to religious faith, demean the bond between father, mother, and children, or focus overly on sexism or racism in our society. I think it's an insult to both taxpayers and parents to force such texts on their children. Somebody said that the teachers, they're the ones who use them. Remember, children are the ones who read them. And I absolutely understand teachers and wanting to be trusted, and I trust Madison teachers, but ultimately our responsibility is those children who read the things. And so I respectfully recommend that we disapprove the recommendation of these high school texts for 9 to 12. I think we can do a better textbook for our students for those years.
We have a motion on the floor. Our motion on the floor has to do with 6 through 8. Is that what you clearly understand, everybody? 6 through 8? And a lot of the things that were said have to do with 9 through 12. So my question to you is, when it's on the floor, we have to vote on 6 through 8. Are we ready to do that now? Has everybody said what they want to say? Am I wrong? Is the what? Discuss it. Okay. So are we ready to move forward from discussing it to voting on it? Ready? And if so, could I have a motion to either approve or disapprove the 6 through 8 series?
I'll make a motion to approve the HMH textbook for grades 6 through 8 as presented.
Do I have a second?
It kind of hurts my heart to do this because I don't trust the company, but out of respect for the teachers, and I don't think the curriculum is bad, I will second the motion to approve the 6 through 8 curriculum. I will.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the HMH 6 through 8 series, 6 through 8 adoption. I'm thinking my way through that one. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Then the 6 through 8 curriculum has been approved. Now we go on to the 9 through 12. Could I have a motion on the floor to approve or not approve the 9 through 12 HMH curriculum?
I make a motion to not approve the HMH curriculum 9 through 12.
Could I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Now's the time for discussion. Is there any further discussion that anybody wants to make? I do have something to say, but I can wait.
Just one quick thing, as I read through the curriculum 9 through 12, I really felt like I was reading the curriculum to build social activists. That's what I got from the curriculum, and it troubled me.
Well, I'll go next. Honestly, here's a couple of things that I just want to say that have nothing to do with the curriculum. I don't know why so many people were here tonight that voiced their opinion that we did not have God in our schools. You're looking at 5 people sitting up here, 5 people that pray every single day. And it takes place in our classrooms and in our schools every single day. We don't teach religion, but we pray. We pray when we send our kids home at the end of the day, hoping that they'll have a good time when they get home, and that when their parents talk to them, their parents have positive things to say to them. We hope that they get enough food to eat when they go home on Friday and come back on Monday. We hope that they sometimes get treated the way we would want our own children, I'm looking at everybody out there, to be treated. That's what we want for your children too. And I'm not defending teachers, but I'll not sit here and say that prayer does not go on. We don't teach religion, but we pray all the time. And I can tell you there were many times when I walked that school building praying that my kids would be safe every single day. So please take it for what I'm saying. There's a lot of good teachers, and you all know that some have challenges. But we weren't talking about, as far as this textbook goes, there's a lot of conversation that takes place behind the scenes with us. And when I was looking at the textbooks, I wasn't looking at morality. I was looking at, here's a story. Am I reading this story the way that I think what it means? There were 13, I think, not 24. I think there were 13 that Mr. Wingate pointed out that he had concerns with. And I read them front to back. And I thought, do I have concerns with this one too? And if I do, is there another way that the teachers could give the other side and the other opinion? Because what worries me is if we don't approve a 9 through 12, it's going to go right back to the drawing board. There's, I think, 4 textbook series that have been approved by the state. And maybe the next one will be perfect. I don't know. Or maybe there might be 20 selections that people don't like. But I'm just looking at it in terms of, if we want to look for another book, let's look for another book. But don't expect it to be a perfect book. The bottom line is, parents, we are very concerned that we're going to put that information out there. You should be able to read the story in a book. You should be able to read that with your child and discuss it with your child. That's what we hope you will do. There's no secrets here. If you don't like a story, you let the school know, this story for next week, I don't like it. It's not a good story. There are independent selections that can be chosen instead of that story. And so I'm not trying to defend anything. I think this has gotten way out of hand, to be honest. We're talking about a textbook. We're not talking about the morality of kids. I don't know that we're going to find a textbook that's going to be what each and every person in this county wants to have. I just don't know it. I hope we do. If we don't accept one tonight, I hope the next book has all kinds of stories that you like. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I have read all of the stories that Mr. Wingate objected to. I wish a lot of you had read them too. I think a lot of you did, but I know a lot of you, have not read them. And I would love to know what your opinion is too. So, having said that, are we ready to vote? Everybody ready? We have a motion on the floor to not approve the HMH textbook series for 9 through 12. All in favor, say aye. Well, I tell you what, let's just go with a, voice.
Roll call.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. Let's go with the roll call vote, please. Ms. Patterson?
Yes, I agree.
Oh, okay.
You didn't hear me say yes? I said yes.
I said yes.
Ms. Collier? So what we're voting for is to not approve
No.
No.
And I'm going to vote yes, but I will say it passes. We're not accepting this book. So there we are again. What I would ask is when the next committee is formed, as Mr. Wingate formed a committee to help him to look and read through the books, that there be more of a spread of people on it. Some of you parents can be on it. People need to be on it instead of one person's voice. We don't need one person's voice. It doesn't matter whether it's mine or Mr. Wingate's or Mr. Sheeds or any of us up here, or you too. You have a voice. We want to hear that voice, but it has to be a mixed group of people. It cannot be somebody that's always going to be looking for something wrong with something. So I hope and I pray that we can find a book, and it is a book. It's not anything but a book with selections in it. It's a tool. And I hope and pray we can find one that will make everybody on this board happy about voting yes. This is the book we want for our kids because we do represent you and you do have a voice. But let's do it in a fair and open way so that everybody knows what other people think, believe, and it's not going to make everybody happy, but we'll do the best we can. So we will be talking with each other and figuring out where we go from here, because I'm not even sure at this point. Do we still have time to get a book?
Well, we've used the last one for 30 years, so another year probably won't hurt.
Well, what will happen if we don't get a book? The teachers don't have the resources they need. They'll be scrambling to go to the internet, and they'll look for things that they can find that support the lessons. And I don't know that that's not meant to be a threat. They just don't have a tool, a book that there are stories in. So maybe we have time to still get one. And maybe we don't care. Maybe we'll just pass this on and just leave it go and use whatever we can put together that we still have. Is that what you want to do?
I think we are fully able to solve a problem within their digital textbooks. I think that we can form a committee, a well-rounded committee, and decide on a textbook for use in the school year. It's June. When does school start?
August the something. August the
Mid-August.
something.
So digital textbooks are a thing of reality. And so I think we owe it to our teachers and our students to have a textbook for whatever reason that was 30 years old. That shouldn't happen again. But I think that we owe it to them to try to form something. And if it's a digital textbook initially, and the physical ones get here, then that happens. But I think we owe it to them to try to get something for the start of the school year.
So basically, we have about a month. And we'll be working together, trying to talk to you guys, trying to find people that want to participate with an open mind, not a liberal mind, not a conservative mind, an open mind. And try to find the best book that we can find for our children. So we will hopefully have something to present to everyone in July. Teachers, we need your input too. So I guess you've heard me enough.
I want to ask a question to Mrs. Graham and Mrs. Allen and the rest of the educators here. What typically is the time frame that a book is used in schools? And how did we get to 30 years?
Good question.
Dr. Jones and myself can only speak to 4. Typically, it's every 7 years. There's a schedule that comes out from the DOE. So I imagine maybe in the past there wasn't funding for the textbooks.
Okay.
Maybe they liked what they were using.
And my point is that there's no one, I don't think there's anyone in this school system who is literally right now at fault for not having books in a timely manner. So to point the finger at everyone up here that we're not adopting a textbook, I think is not right. We're trying to fix an issue that's been ongoing, obviously, for 30 years.
I don't know really what you're referring to, but all I'm saying is I've seen teachers pull things off the internet, and a lot of the stuff on the internet, excuse me, is not factual. It is biased, and it's worse than some of the things that probably are in the stories. And that's my concern, Mr. Sheeds. But I think we can probably find a book in a month as well. So keep your fingers crossed and stay tuned.
Well, I think you may have been taking that personally against you. I didn't mean it that way. I meant that we have an issue that's been ongoing for 30 years. I haven't even lived in Madison County for 30 years. So we've got an issue that we need to fix. I'm not worried about the internet stuff. I think we have teachers that are well-informed, educated enough to know what to put in front of these children and what not to put in front of these children. I'll give you an example. When my daughter was in her early teens, there was a book that was recommended to read. A paper had to be signed by both of her parents, allowing her to read that book. We did not sign the paper because we were absolutely against it. It was so controversial, we would not have had that book in our house. And a week later, she was in her room reading that book because the teacher gave it to her without our permission. That's one of the things that I want to keep out of their hands.
Okay, let's see. What's next?
Madam Chairwoman,
I'm sorry.
just to clarify, because we're a little off our textbook adoption schedule now. Because typically we would develop a committee, bring it to you all to vote, and then the committee works on gathering materials, which takes a little bit of time to come in from the textbook companies. Are we going to follow that policy, which will take us a few months instead of just the month? Is there a different process you would like to follow for this next month?
May I ask a question again?
Most certainly.
I think I heard there were 4 accepted curriculums from VDOE,
I saw
4 or 5, I'm trying to think of the list.
and we've only seen 2. We got the
We actually brought them all, because during the selection period with the open house for all parents and community members that come in, they were all available for people to look at. So we still have them.
How long do we still have the samples, and how long?
We have
do?
everything still, yes.
We don't have to return them?
No.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, if we still have them.
Do you know if are they all digital? I mean, they're all digital components? Do you know?
I think all of them came with digital, as far as I remember.
So,
all of
so I
them
mean,
did.
it's not, we shouldn't have to wait for anything to come in, right? I mean, all we need is a password that we can.
If we're just looking at the stuff that previously wasn't brought before you.
So I know that parents could go in and look at what we just turned down. So is there a possibility that it can be posted so that parents can log in and give us their comments on what they're seeing?
You mean
do
for
we have enough time?
the ones that were voted down tonight? Because that's what's been posted, so parents could review tonight's. Are you saying that for every company? Which we had published that before, so we can put that back out.
So maybe I'm not being clear. If there's 4 textbooks, we eliminated 1, so there's 3 more. We do have samples of all of those.
We do.
Okay, and they haven't been ordered yet, but we have samples of all of those. So if we can't get the books in, if the teachers can't get the training by the beginning of school, what are some options that we have, or are there any?
Options for the textbooks, or?
Options for getting them in. What would happen if we got them in October? And not that
I
we
mean, we
would.
start using things when they arrive. So prior to that, right, have to ask them to ship it as fast as possible.
Right, but also, there's a digital component of each.
Right, if there's a,
Digital component of each one, they can read, they can reuse in August. I mean, and as soon as you buy it, you probably have access, right? So, so we have 6 weeks basically to decide upon a textbook.
correct.
So
Only though, we're assuming though that it's picked from the other 3 options. That's the only problem, 3 or 4.
Okay. So could the digital access be given, can it be posted now for all 3 of them? Do we want to do that and have parents looking at 3 of them? Or do we want to do this committee, pick one, and then open that up for parents, if we have parents on the committee? Is that what we want to do? What do you think, board?
Yes. How do we
Yeah.
make that happen? How do we make it happen?
How do we make it happen? I don't know. Honestly, we've never faced this before, so I guess we'll just have to figure it out, and it's going to have to be quick. So I'm thinking that probably one of us or all of us need to check out and see what we have. I mean, I don't know what we still have. I don't know what there is a digital component too that could be released. I don't know if we want to do the committee first and then pick one and, bring that one to a vote. I mean, if people don't like that one, then we go back to 2. I mean, honestly, I sound confused, but really, we've never done this before. So, pardon me? No.
So we
Until the
need-
meeting's over, then you can come tell me what you think.
So we need to go
Was
back.
was that a question or an idea, or what was it? Yeah,
So
I don't
what I
think
was-
at this point,
What I was gonna say is, I need to go back over to the high school tomorrow, pull everything back together, get it all in place, post everything. And then it sounds like we need to put together a committee. I mean, we just need to go back to the process. It just needs to be expedited. So we need to put together a thorough, well-rounded committee to meet soon, to review all of the information yet again, and see if there is something in the remaining books that we have that you want to bring forward, that committee will recommend.
so they would bring that forward in July? I mean, that's what I'm trying to work out.
Mrs. Allen, I would like to say that from today, we're looking at 2 months of process, because if we should find something we like and approve it in July, it's going to have to be ordered, and then we won't pay it until it comes in. So the earliest we're looking about paying anything is August, at the August board meeting. So right now, we're 2 months if we approve in July.
I
So
would-
you know that
Can-
timeframe.
I'm sorry. Can it be on the agenda at the June 30th board meeting to close out the year? Could we put the textbooks?
No, I don't know that that's enough time, really. You're talking about June the 30th?
The superintendent is out of the office for a piece, so I would vote no.
I second that vote.
I have a suggestion. I think Ms. Jones, you're right. I think we should have a committee, a well-rounded committee with parents included, school board members included, teachers included, expedite the process. I think I think we set a timeline up, probably by first week in July, after July 4th, 6th, 7th, whatever, we come up with a recommendation. We submit that to everybody. We have a period of where parents make comments for a couple of weeks, and I think we can, when's the July board meeting?
July the 11th.
So maybe we present that and discuss it on July 11th, and then we can have a board meeting in late July if we need to, into July, say, I don't know, July 20-something, that we come back just to vote. And if it's a well-rounded committee, there's no reason why we can't find a textbook that people are happy to vote for, I think. And then we can pay for that and make a decision and have it in hand. Certainly a digital component in hand for the start of school, if not the physical.
I would actually say that I would rather start the school year without a textbook than rush it this fast. We're not talking about these great textbook companies. These are just going to be more huge national textbook companies. If you rush it, you're going to end up missing stuff maybe more stuff than what's in what you're disagreeing with tonight. Like I say, you go slow. We have a textbook policy for a reason, and it's to prevent rushing through things. We should not go against our policy. If there's stuff wrong with this textbook tonight, you better take your time to make the decision on the next textbook.
And something I was gonna say too, when we were doing our expedited process, which clearly is probably not
makes
for the
sense.
best, is that secondarily, we would have to work on what our teachers will be doing in those first 9 weeks, regardless of that work, because they're not gonna have it immediately. So we also have work to do on that end. So we have a couple of things going on at once, regardless.
I would defer to your expertise on how best to handle the committee.
So you think we just put it off?
I think we, starting tomorrow, Dr. Jones and I get together and we restart the textbook selection committee process. So in July, we'll bring forth to you our list of people that we recommend to be on the textbook adoption committee. Like I say, we start the whole thing over.
Okay, so in July, you will suggest, I'm just for clarification, so we all understand it and I understand it. You guys will be bringing forth a list of names to us to be on the textbook adoption committee. Okay, then we
Correct.
would approve those in July.
Correct, along with an adoption timeline, just like we did earlier in the year for this process.
Okay, so, okay. Is that okay with everybody? That works for you?
How many days' notice is required to call a special meeting?
2 weeks?
It's emergency.
Isn't it two?
Well, 3 days if it's an emergency.
3 days if
3
it's an emergency.
3 days if it's an emergency. Okay, but if we just want to have a called meeting, is it 2 weeks because it has to be announced, or no? You can? Okay. All right, well, sounds like we've got a process. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. We've got more business to do, so we're going to go ahead and start on that. So let's see. Policy approval, textbook adoption. Parent and information program policy. Okay.
We're, do you want me to go forward with that one?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're asking for approval tonight for BFC, the policy adoption. So the policy is KB, Parent and Public Information Program. This was the policy previously revised by Board Member Wingate. I'm not sure if you want to say anything about that.
Let's be real brief. We've talked about this before. The adjustments were that I sat down with Mrs. Graham and we went over what the legal counsel had given us. We made some clarifications about difference between text and curriculum. We removed, to make clear that we weren't trying to be onerous to teachers, we removed things like supplementary resources, worksheets, PowerPoints, things like that. All we're asking for is a syllabus and names of texts. And then you can read on the board. You can read on the board. It's on there. Maybe not. That was sort of the major change that we made, was made it less onerous. After Mrs. Graham advocated for the teachers wisely, I think, and so we limited some of the things that are being required to be posted with the goal of making sure. But we are posting some things with the goal of making sure that parents know what is going to happen in the classroom. And I think besides that, it's no big changes. I think Mrs. Graham said you're comfortable with what we came up with.
I think the information that you stated for the parent portal is more than sufficient, and we'll gather all that information over the summer.
Could I have a motion that we approve the Parent and Public Information Program policy as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Parent and Public Information Policy as presented.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That has been passed. One down. All right. Moving on to okay. We were presented with I'll make sure I get it all in here. Could I have approval, and you guys have seen all this before, for the Title I Part A as presented?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Title I Part A, improving basic programs as presented.
Could I have a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. The next for business approval is the Virginia Regional Migrant Education Program, Title I, Part C. Could I have approval, could I have a motion to approve the Regional Migrant Education Program for the 2022-23 school year as presented?
Motion to approve.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the Migrant Education Program for next school year. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, the next one is to request approval for the Title II, Part A, preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers and principals. Could I have a motion to approve that request?
I'll make a motion to approve Title II, Part A, preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers and principals as presented.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Motion carries. Oh, sorry. Sorry, y'all. Getting ahead of myself. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Now, motion carries. All right. The next for approval is to request approval for Title III, Part A, language instruction for English learners and immigrant students. Could I have a motion to approve the Title II, Part A, language instruction for English learners and immigrant students?
I so move.
Could I have a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The next one is to request approval of Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant as presented. Could I have a motion for approval? Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve Title IV, Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The next that we're requesting approval for is to participate in the VSBA Policy Services for a term of 1 year from July the 1st, 2022 to June the 30th, 2023, and renewable for 4 additional one-year terms at the original contract fee. Could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve, that we will participate in the VSBA policy services for the term of 1 year from July the 1st, 22 to June the 30th, 23, and renewable for 4 additional 1-year terms at the original fee. Is there any discussion?
Are there any other entities other than the VSBA that we can work with for policies? Are they our only avenue for governing policies?
Short answer, yes. We technically could hire our own legal counsel to write all of our policies for us as the laws change, so that would be our other avenue.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries. Okay, the next one is to seek approval for the Madison County High School to apply for the VHSL membership for 22-23. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. I think we're heading down the home stretch. Mr. Wingate, would you like to take this one for a minute?
Sure, thank you. I was on the CIP committee, and I at risk of getting Damon mad at me. His knowledge is far greater than mine in terms of building. He's a builder by trade. He knows a whole lot more and be a much greater resource for the schools than I am. I'm an idiot about stuff like that. And so I talked to him, he's good with it. And so I wanted to nominate him to take my place on the Capital Improvement Plan Committee as a school board representative.
Would you like to make that? Did you make that in the form of a motion?
All right, I would like to make a motion to make Mr. Myers the CIP representative for the school board.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Myers taking Mr. Wingate's place on the CIP committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Congratulations. Would I win? All right. The next section is reports from school board members, student representatives, and we don't have our student representative here anymore. So it'll just be us and the superintendent. Ms. Collier.
Sure, I'll go. So I attended the PREP, the Piedmont Regional Education Program board meeting, and the biggest highlight there was they hired a new principal for Ivy Creek School, and that principal is Gary Wintersgill. And I think that's about all some other teacher appointments, but that's about all we did major at that board meeting. And then I attended the beautiful graduation. It was gorgeous. It was hot. And I stole all of my colleagues' waters because they weren't there with me. Well, Karen was on stage, but I stole everybody's water because it was really, really hot. But it was beautiful. Congratulations to all the seniors, and Betty Jo and your staff did an amazing job. So that's all I have.
Mr. Sheets?
I don't have any updates. Haven't had any other meetings.
Yet.
Nothing to share?
Yet. I'm
Yet.
sure they're coming. And the only thing I'd like to add as well is I was honored to be able to attend the high school graduation. It was the hottest day I've ever seen, but it was a memorable day. And to see the students throwing their hats in the air was just, it made me feel great all day long. They have their whole life in front of them and future. So as a representative of the board, it was a wonderful day. Mr. Wingate?
The only committee thing to mention is I sat down and on the priority number 2 committee that met to form goals, and I just wanted to commend Mrs. Graham for the good work in bringing together. I mean, obviously there's a lot of very diverse perspectives in this community, and Ms. Temple was there, and I thought it was a very happy experience of nicely well led in terms of bringing together those multiple perspectives and a collegial atmosphere with strong opinions on all sides and forming, I think, good goals for our students. So I just want to thank you for that.
Mr. Myers? Oh, sorry.
Well, I have not been a part of a committee until tonight, so next month maybe I'll have something to share.
So you have something to look forward to, too. Ms. Graham?
I did just want to talk for a moment about school safety in light of the tragedy that did happen in Texas and some other things going around the country. We're using this as an opportunity. Drew Eanes, who's our family support worker, and then our school resource officer, Mike Foster, came to me with a fantastic, very thorough vulnerability assessment that they're doing. They're going around with each school principal, and there's a very long checklist where they're just checking the building for safety, and just anything we can do, fix, or do to make our buildings safer. So that's something going on this summer that will be taken care of, as far as like doors properly latching, because some of our doors are getting older, so they're slow to close or they're not locking properly. So they're trying to find all those weak spots for us so we can take care of it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I have one last one. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's still here tonight, that it is my intention to resign from the Madison County School Board by the end of June. It's been an honor to be a part of this, and I appreciate everything and every phone call and every bit of support that I've gotten, and I won't continue on because my voice is shaking, and I don't want to do that, but I did want to let you know. Thank you. I hope you have a nice evening.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, please do. So Mr. Sheets has made a motion to, Mr. Sheets has made a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
We don't need one, but we are adjourned.